What's up, everybody? I have Steven from the Skeptical Agnostic YouTube channel. Go subscribe if you want real salvation, not that fake, phony, lemon selling fake salvation stuff that's going to break down after a little while. This is permanent salvation. You get wings out the gate. Now, Steven, what's up, man? Welcome.
What's up, man? You're going to get me flagged for false advertisement. People are going to be like, I was expecting salvation when I went to your channel.
Listen, it's not false, okay? This is the real thing, everybody.
Okay.
Look, we're going to open up the queue here for any Christians who are very confident that Jesus rose from the dead, and of course, they just can't wait to tell us how wrong we are and why that position makes better sense. And of course, they have the burden of proof to really give us a strong case here. And I would approach this like any other religion, just like you would. When you make a claim that the moon was split, I'm gonna have some questions. When you make the claim that something really wild that we don't see on a regular or have never seen in real life, I'm gonna question that. Even if it was like a plausible thing that wasn't miraculous, I'm just telling you how I work. I'm much more like, that's possible in my mind. It doesn't demand magic or any weird metaphysical explanation or something in order to posit this idea. Yet I'm still skeptical. For example, I think there's life in the universe, right? But are they messing with us? Are they probing people's rectums? Are they actually doing, all that kind of stuff? Look, I am very skeptical. I'm very doubtful of that, even though it could be happening. It's not out of the, it's not impossible in my mind that could be the case. Unlikely. Right. But you know what I'm saying? I'm just being the true skeptic. You might call us gadflies because Socrates endlessly criticized,
That's right, man. Now, I'm with you on that. I mean, obviously, I'm calling myself the skeptical agnostic. And, I think both of us, Derek, we're on the other side of this because when we were Christians, we believed in the resurrection, right? I would use the same arguments that apologists, that some callers are probably going to use today. There was a point towards the end of my deconversion, and we talked about it when I discussed my deconversion with you, that even there was a point where I was still a Christian, but I still had to admit, there's, with regards to historical evidence for the resurrection, it's weak. So, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. But we keep hearing it's not weak. We keep hearing how strong it is. And it's like, look, I understand. You and I've lived, believing that this was strong. In fact, I think at one point you might have considered yourself an apologist, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I sure did.
It was convincing at one point. And then, I guess before we get any callers, because we're waiting for callers to join to challenge this idea or to really prove, give us the best argument on why you're so persuaded. And why we should be persuaded is what did it for you? What Legos started to, or Jenga is better yet. What blocks started to come out that made you go, hold up, the tower fell. It no longer could stand.
Well, and again, we talked about this a little bit when you interviewed me regarding my deconversion, but there wasn't any domino specifically with regards to the resurrection. It was more the reliability of the New Testament that kind of fell apart for me. And a lot of it, we talked about it, dealt with viewing Jesus as an apocalyptic prophet, and a lot of Dale Allison's work that kind of unraveled a lot for me with regards to the New Testament. And so I really just felt my perspective of Jesus as the Son of God start to unravel. And then it was after that I was just like, when it came to the resurrection, I couldn't really fool myself any longer. And one thing that actually changed it for me too is, and we didn't talk about this, but when I was starting to deconvert, I had Mormons come to my house. And once they realized that I was into apologetics, they brought like the head of their Mormon church, and they're like just down the street. So they came over like in a subsequent afternoon and sat in my living room, and we talked for a good 45 minutes. And we talked about, how they believed that they had evidence for the angel Moroni giving the plates to Joseph Smith. And And all of their justifications were just very similar to the justifications I had heard, or like the ad hoc reasoning that I had heard from apologists. And and I remember, like, after that discussion, I really sat and thought about it, and it just kind of started to hit me how it was the same playbook being used, just by a completely different religion. And that was a significant domino, because we were talking about historical justification, or justification for supposed historical events. So that was a big one too.
Yeah. Well, look, this Catholic here says it's not on us that needs to prove Christ's resurrection, but atheists who should prove he did not resurrect.
Well, okay. So first off, no. Again, like, that's like saying, oh, it's not the Mormons that need to prove that Joseph Smith encountered the angel Moroni with the plates. It's you who has to disprove that. No, anyone who makes a claim does have to share a burden of proof. So I do agree that if I say that the resurrection did not happen, then that would be a burden that I would have to prove, which I don't know that I would say I know that with certainty, but I can say, I guess my claim would be, I don't think the resurrection is reasonable to believe. And that is a claim that I think that I can justify. But notice that I'm not claiming what did or did not happen. I'm talking more epistemically. It's not reasonable to infer that Jesus rose from the dead. But for Christians who say, no, Jesus did rise from the dead, no, that's a claim, and you therefore have a burden of proof. Right. And I don't want to get the wrong idea across, like somebody that calls in, we're just going to say, hey, the burden of proof is all on you, and we're just going to sit back and cross our arms. Again, whoever makes a claim has a burden of proof, and I will happily defend the claim that the resurrection is not reasonable to believe. But the person who's saying that Jesus rose from the dead and that that's a historical occurrence, you have a burden of proof there.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's a lot there. Because, again, I would just rule out based on other what's more likely, and I would use that same approach to any and all other subjects. Christian Duck in the back, I need to see a video to know that you're legit, and wave at me.
I've never seen a Christian Duck.
Okay, cool. All right, Christian Duck, what's up? Welcome.
Hey, how are you guys? Welcome. Thank you. How are you guys doing today?
What's up? We're doing good. We're looking for someone who's a Christian.
Sure.
Who can prove the resurrection or Jesus rose from the dead. And I don't mean it in a metaphor. I think if you're the same guy who's come in the past.
So you're presupposing naturalism already in the sort of panel.
I'm saying when you look at when you're looking at the New Testament, there are some things that it says, and the body is missing from the tomb. If we grant pretty much the Christian premise, that the idea that the Christian doctrine is that Jesus rose physically from the grave, that's what I'm looking for from Christians to try and make that case.
Yeah, really quick, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, buddy. Buddy,
I'm your buddy, dude. That's awesome, man. I'm your friend too.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to clear up some confusion here, and
please do.
Okay, I'm not a naturalist, so despite the fact that I think a naturalist account.
Wait, real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you, buddy, but why did you say it with so much aggression? Like I wouldn't believe you if you tell me I'm not a naturalist. Like, I wouldn't have skepticism about that, buddy guy.
I was actually just being in good faith, man. I'm not an asshole.
No, but that's for Derek, right? That's not for me, right? If Derek presupposed historical mythicism, naturalism, you don't need to abuse me physically and mentally in order to convince me you're a naturalist. Smile more. That's logical, right?
All right, dude. Are you going to be able to discuss this amicably, or are you just going to be an asshole?
So why don't you tell me what else you're going to talk about?
Okay, Duck. Maybe next time, man. I mean, you're not even defending the premise. We literally want Christians to come on and defend the resurrection. Instead, they're shifting this to make it about something else. And then it becomes a completely different thing than the resurrection. So anyway,
Well, and I wasn't trying to be a jerk by calling him buddy. Maybe that seems patronizing. I just I didn't know if Christian Duck was his actual name, so maybe I should have said Christian. But I I don't know why his skin was so thin, man.
No, I think he's come in before, but didn't behave that way, if I'm not mistaken. Usually much more in good faith. But in that case, it's like, we're talking about the resurrection, dude. Like, why is not a single word about the resurrection being brought up? It just comes to presuppositions or goes to what you're a naturalist. I'm going to start with what seems most plausible. And I think everyone's methodology in the real world, unless you're a lunatic living, in some world that keeps you alive where you can have delusional thoughts 24/7 and it allows that, where you're safe. Everyone survives using these natural observations, you know what I'm saying, on a regular. So I find that, I find that the more plausible should be the more go-to explanation, even if you don't grant that you're a naturalist at the end of the day. But I think that was important you brought that in, because you could tell the first question was, so we're starting with naturalism.
Okay. Naturalistic presuppositions. Yeah. So,
yeah, but even historical methodology is ultimately grounded in this kind of rigorous method. I mean, this is stuff that's been debated by Bart Ehrman, with several scholars, Mike Lacona, others who try to bring in the miraculous as something that you can somehow sift through history and find and pull it out and go, yeah, we can make a case. Miracles happen and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. And a lot of this is going to come down to background knowledge. And the issue that I think a lot of Christian apologists don't understand is that even if whether you're a naturalist or not, a lot of our background knowledge is naturalistic, right? Anytime someone comes to you with some sort of miraculous story or extraordinary occurrence, you have background knowledge in the background that runs off of, even if you're not a naturalist, it runs off of like naturalistic principles, right? So for instance, I had a coworker and she wasn't religious. She was an astrologist, and she would tell me of all these crazy things. And she told me a story about her witnessing the Grim Reaper outside her door. And like, what am I supposed to do with that? Right. Like, again, well, you have some people in the chat going crazy there.
They're trolls, just trolls.
Yeah. So, any person, when they hear a story like that, has background knowledge of propositions or assessing the probability of a proposition or a claim like that with naturalistic tendencies, right? I'm not going to sit here and say she didn't see the Grim Reaper, but all of a sudden when she tells me those things, my background knowledge is that I don't believe that the Grim Reaper exists. And so I'm going to find more plausible naturalistic alternatives than she really saw the Grim Reaper. And it wasn't outside her door. Sorry, it was outside her window, right? But I'm going to come up with other more plausible alternatives before I affirm the proposition that, oh yeah, she saw the Grim Reaper outside her window.
It's Scooby-Doo, bro. It's literally, we grew up on the cartoon. I mean, there's usually a mask being pulled off of a demon, a ghost, a saint, an angel, a god, or whatever it might be. And at the end, you usually go, oh. And the thing is that mask gets pulled off by every single other deity, other demigod. It's just this one that the mask remains. And there needs, this happened. And it's also, I mean, almost every feature, resurrection, ascension, the body goes missing, right? Miraculous claims, healing miracles, every single attribute we find for Jesus, we have examples that predate, not just post-date, because someone could go, oh, they copied from the Jesus story. And listen, there is that too.
Right.
There were rewritings, legendary mythological materials later that did work off the Christian mythos and obviously imitated and parallel it and whatnot. But even prior to this, and that's, a lot of people don't know that. And in fact, I used to hear apologists say this, and I'm like, oh, that's a strong point. Like, that, they could have just copied the Christian one. But then all you gotta do is read your church fathers, and you find out real quick, Justin Martyr talks about demons long ago imitated him. That's why he looks like these other characters. And I've even had modern apologists take on their own apologist, their historic Justin Martyr, and go, do you really think, looking at like a Genesis 49 grapevine prophecy,
Yeah.
Do you honestly think that predicts, that this is somehow like Dionysian and stuff, like that the Dionysus is borrowing from this passage in Genesis 49 about grapevines and vineyards and stuff, and then imitated what was prophesying about Jesus later? It's really ridiculous. I think a convoluted argument by Justin Martyr, sure, but either way you put it, there's a lot of problems with it. So I like that mythical approach. You are much more involved, I think, into the psychological and the social of trying to explain plausible routes. Of course, I'm into that as well. But that seems to be more your drive, whereas we're reading a text.
Right.
Is the way I look at it. And we don't even know who this guy is or if this is legit. And I have questions before we even start taking texts serious.
Right.
Fundamentally about the material that we're reading. But anyway, no other callers so far. We did get a super chat though, I think. And we got a member. Ed Bach, thank you so much for the membership. I appreciate you joining MythVision's salvation program where we really save people, not that fake stuff. And then Solera Knight, thank you so much for the super chat and being a member. Jesus revived and rose from a coma. Swoon theory?
No, he rose from a comma. He rose from a comma.
Look, I've said this before. Like, I am not convinced at all of the swoon theory. Okay, at all.
Yeah.
It is still more likely to me than.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw Holy Kool-Aid's video. It was like, and I mean, I didn't agree with his rankings. I thought his rankings were a little strange, but because I also think he put like the twin hypothesis as the most plausible, or he put a really implausible one as the most plausible, but still, like, yes, those are more plausible than a resurrection. Even the swoon theory, I do believe is more plausible than the resurrection. I think it's one of the least plausible, but I think the least plausible is the resurrection. Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Even though there are interesting things people will talk about, there's like, we could hypothetically run through so many things. And I think one of the silly things I hear often too from apologists is like, oh, they could have just went and checked, or the chief priest and the Sadducees or the Sanhedrin or whoever might have been involved in the whole thing. When they heard that he was risen, they would have just went and said, here's the body, that's it. It falsifies it. And it's like, now you have to explain why this material that's written decades later, it's like, you're taking this, like, this really goes back to the moments of the thing. But even then, if you say
right,
a month after he's dead, the decomposition would be so bad. How could you actually falsify, even if it was the dude? Like, this is DNA Jesus, son of,
no, and that's a good point. And there's another good argument, which is even if we take the Gospels at face value, what disproves that is the John the Baptist pericope, where King Herod believed that Jesus was John the Baptist raised from the dead, and a bunch of followers of Jesus proclaimed that he was John the Baptist risen from the dead. I think all three synoptic Gospels mention that story. And yet we didn't see anybody say, well, no, wait, but I'm going to go check John the Baptist's tomb. I'm going to go check where his head is because he was beheaded, or I'm going to check where the rest of his body is so we can make sure that his body's there. And we need that before we can infer that he rose from the dead. So, I mean, if you take the Gospels at face value, they disprove that argument. So,
yeah, I've even heard the twin theory, right? There's or twin hypothesis, really, where it's like Jesus had a twin, which Thomas Didymus and stuff. And it's like, we do have, think about like Nero with the Nero Redivivus resurrecting, myth. Right. For those who don't know, when Nero committed suicide, some people, even though I imagine the people who literally buried him, think about this: the guy's body, the emperor of Rome, is killed himself. Okay, they probably cremate him, I suspect. I don't know what to make of this for sure, but at the end of the day, he's dead, and people still believed he was alive. And there were imposters. There were several imposters that came and pretended to be Nero. People bought it so much that a whole war in Parthia and Rome almost happened. It's crazy,
Yeah, so, there's tons of stories like that.
Chief, wave at me. Hey, Chief, can you wave at me backstage? I can't hear. I'm looking to see a wave. Okay, cool. All right. What's up, Chief? Welcome.
What's up, man? How you doing? Can I turn off my camera?
Not connected or something.
I can hear him.
Can
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Hold on.
Hello?
That's me.
I hear you, Chief.
Okay. Can you hear me good, though?
Yeah, I hear you well. I don't know about Derek.
Okay.
Right now.
Derek's been having audio issues, so.
Yeah. I have my headphones on. I couldn't. I came in a couple minutes ago, but I couldn't hear you too good without my headphones. So it's sort of weird.
Welcome. Are you a Christian?
Yeah.
And you do believe Jesus rose from the dead?
100%. Yes.
Okay, awesome, cool. We're finally getting somewhere. All right, cool. So, yeah, what convinces you, and why should we be convinced?
Oh, I'm convinced that God and there's somebody who created the world. I don't think that the world just all the is that. I guess that one of them theories is like the coincidences that have to take place because of the world to exist is it's an incredible. So there has to be a God. 100%.
I may, Chief, just to point out, I know that a lot of what we do is we start back here, just for the sake of argument. Something made this work, or for the sake of argument, let's just all agree something started it all. Okay. There's a plethora of deities, of course, that we could choose from, and systems of religion that try to explain the world, all of that stuff. So for me, like, if you were to convince me, starting at the God thing, if we just agreed there, which we don't technically, but for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to go, okay, something ultimately, whether it be polytheism, some form of something, is the cause of the universe, even though this is a mystery.
Well, can you stop right there real quick? You'd have to prove that point on who that is, who they are, and you have to prove and where you got that from. So the Bible is the best evidence to that.
Because I tried to grant you something here that you're asking me that I would have to prove that you haven't proven to begin. So if you're asking me to prove that there's a hypothetical starting point here that I'm just simply trying to meet you on common ground on whether it be polytheism, monotheism, whatever, the proof would also be you'd have to show why it would only be one, or why it could only be this one.
Let me say that once. Let me give that one point. The Bible is the only book that has the creation where we came from in it. I believe.
No.
Which one? Which other one does?
If you go back to even like Atrahasis epic, Enuma.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Okay.
Creation myths in Egypt that talk about the creation of humankind. It's all over the world. It's every.
You're right. And are they similar? Would you say they're similar?
In Genesis with the Mesopotamian stuff, they're very similar.
Yeah. In South America, they are too. They're very similar. So would you say if something is similar, that means it could have happened, but it could have got twisted a little bit?
I think that humans are going to have shared experiences. This is one way in which people would say stories are framed, because we're all humans and we're all Homo sapiens. We share birth, death, life, the whole nine, together in terms of that. But, there's some people who think at one point in the distant past, they had a shared unique story, and there might be some truth to common stories that do root way back. But then there's also unique, environmental changes. But we're getting off the topic about resurrection. So I want to just gear us back to, you started back here with theism. And I just want to say, I don't think that's a great place to start for trying to prove the resurrection, because you could be proving Dionysus's rebirth. He was resurrected, and literally the Greek term for him being reborn is very similar to the same Greek terms we use for Jesus prior to Jesus.
That's Greek mythology. That's Greek mythology.
It's Jewish mythology. Jesus would be Jewish mythology is the point. So that's why
false. This is historical. Is a historical. Nowhere in this Bible does this say that this is mythology. Nowhere does it say once upon a time, and nowhere it says that. This is historical knowledge.
Dionysus
What's
doesn't
that?
say upon a time. It doesn't say this is mythology. It
Right.
doesn't tell you that. This is classical
Was it-
scholars today that are actually saying.
Yeah, I got to study. I thought he was sort of with Zeus and all them other guys, right?
No, he is. So you're correct.
Bingo. That's
yeah.
it. That's what I'm talking about.
If you don't mind, let me make this point. Modern scholars, right, look back and have created categories. We have categories that scholarship has, separated and identified stuff. Modern classical scholars have identified it. These stories are fables. They're fictional. They are legendary. There's a lot of
What story? Which one? You got to be specific. You're throwing out a lot of vague stuff. So be specific what you're talking about.
Yeah, fiction. You know what fiction is?
Okay, you're talking about the Greek mythology. That's labeled as Greek mythology.
He wants to know which specific story, I guess, you're referring to as mythology.
Right. Yeah. Are you talking about the Bible? Nowhere in the Bible does that say that's mythology. Nowhere.
The Greek stories don't say they're myths. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They don't say that they're myths. This is an identifier.
I'd have to read it.
This is
how do they start? Do they start out as a story? Okay, so
hold on. Let me finish because you're not hearing what I'm saying. Let's try to be,
who is
in this discussion?
Uncle Jim?
So modern scholarship has created categories to try and understand what the literature of the ancient world is. There are ancient authors that were elite thinkers, Plutarch and others, who might identify certain narratives and call them fables. Just call it fiction. That's an easy category we can all latch on to. The problem is none of those fables call themselves fables. None of them call themselves myth. It is people who are educated who notice fiction in those stories and identify them that way. So when I see those elements in Dionysus, whether it be Zeus, whether it be the Mesopotamian gods, Egyptian mythology, and the list goes on, whatever culture you want to call, and then I see that in the Bible, I see the same tropes, themes, elements. Modern scholars will say that's fiction. They call it legend or they call it mythology. And that's what I'm trying to say. And the Bible has that as well.
It's a big no. The Bible does not 100 0. It doesn't.
So, Chief, how do you know? Let's go with legend instead of myth, right? How do you know that? And let's try to trace this back to the resurrection. How do you know, for instance, that the gospel accounts in general and with respect to the resurrection do not contain any legendary development?
This is historical eyewitness account. This is easy Google of people who wrote about Jesus at that time. Multiple people have wrote about him, and these are real people. Caesar, people in the Bible, those are real people. These are so.
Yeah,
it's like that. Hold on, give me 1 second. What I'm going to say? Are you also saying that Muhammad was false? That he wasn't real either?
What do you mean? He existed.
Was Muhammad a real person? Very simple.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
So was Caesar.
And Muhammad wrote about Jesus.
And Caesar ascended to heaven. Did you know that? Did you know that Caesar?
Say that again.
Caesar ascended to heaven. Did you know that?
In what story?
In what story? Ancient historians document eyewitnesses actually seeing Caesar ascend to heaven. Have you read about those?
What was it? Was this Greek mythology once again?
No, historians.
These are historians.
Ancient Roman historians document eyewitnesses swearing an oath in court.
Okay, how many eyewitnesses?
Several different eyewitnesses over
yeah, I have to look that up.
And a half document that they swore that they saw the Caesar ascend to heaven.
And who was that? What was the time and where I need to write that down. Where did that happen at?
Sources for you?
Yeah. Give me the sources.
If I show you these sources, would you be convinced that Jesus isn't the only one who ascended?
Once again, I'd have to look at the eyewitness accounts. I'd have to look at how it was written, when it was written, how many, if one person just said he did it, then just like, what's his name? Like a lot of religions start, one person, like the Jehovah Witnesses and the Mormons. The one person saw one thing, and it just starts. They believe one. If it's a multiple I'd have to look at it and dissect it
I'm
and see what
glad
happened.
that you brought up. I'm glad that you brought up Mormonism, because Mormonism actually has 8 witnesses, 3 of which have signed affidavits. So we actually have, I think, more concrete eyewitness testimony for Mormonism than we do for Christianity. We have actually signed legal documents of the witnesses, and actually some of these witnesses departed from Joseph Smith for a while, and yet they still said that their eyewitness testimony was correct.
Okay, what did they witness if he was by himself in a cave?
He wasn't.
Obviously,
so,
you don't know. You don't know the story, right?
Yes,
Was he in a cave?
I read the Book of Mormon. So there you have 3 witnesses who claim to have seen the angel Moroni give Joseph Smith the golden tablets, and then you have 8 witnesses.
Okay, where are they at? Where they at? Where they at? Where they at?
You have 8 witnesses who claim to have seen the golden tablets as well. So I think there are 11 total witnesses, and again, at least 3 of them signed legal documents, and so we know these people's names, right?
Yeah.
We don't just say, "Oh, this is Matthew," and we try to connect the dots like we do with the New Testament. We actually know these people's names. These people had social security numbers. I mean, no, they didn't.
Okay. Well, we know that. Well, if you study Mormonism, they're Freemasons. So Freemasons are deceptive and deceiving liars. So whatever.
But once you admit that, then you're making mine and Derek's point, which is that eyewitness testimony is not enough to ground the truth of what's being claimed.
Well, I've read the Bible, and it doesn't align up what the Bible says. It's contrary to the Bible, but he uses the Bible as a reference. So if you're contrary to what you're representing, and you just like, do you understand what I'm saying? They quote the Bible, and
you're saying Mormonism is not consistent with Christianity, right?
They say they have the right text, but they got their text from the Bible, but the Bible was corrupt, correct?
I don't know.
So
the Bible is corrupt, Derek? I don't know.
Yes. They say the Bible is corrupt, but that's where they got their text from.
I know Islam
false.
Does this, and I know that there's a translation by Joseph Smith. He translates the Bible, but I don't think he makes a strong case of, the Bible was corrupted. The Islamic
he does. They do.
Muslims do that,
so.
and so I know
they both do it.
That's a strong case.
You could ask any of them. They do it. Trust me.
What makes you trust an ancient text? How do you know they're eyewitnesses? You're reading an ancient story, so how do you know without meeting the guy that they're actual eyewitnesses? You're reading an ancient book. Like, I'm about to pull up some sources now that are going to.
Well, how do you know any historical books? How do you know any historical book is true? How do you know that?
I don't. But you're supposing the Bible is. You see what I'm saying?
So you're saying there's no such thing as true historical books, or is that what you're saying?
That's a straw man. That's not what I said. What I said.
I mean, that's basically what you're saying, though.
You're not letting me make my point. You're jumping.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So my point is, I never said that there aren't ancient texts that are documenting ancient things that we can trust, that might be reliable. The point is, how can you know for sure when you're reading an ancient text that you should trust what that text says about a claim you weren't there to witness?
Well, there was people outside of the Bible who documented Jesus Christ, for one. So there's this. Are you saying Jesus Christ isn't a real person?
I'm not saying that. So
let's make that clear. Jesus Christ was a real person, yes or no?
Got it. Yep.
Yeah, I believe that.
Okay, bingo. He was a real person. I can't remember the guy's name. He went and investigated. I think it was Josephus. Went and investigated what happened to Jesus Christ in 60 AD, and he talked to a lot of witnesses, and he said that Jesus was a magician. He didn't agree. I think his name Josephus in 60 AD.
Was a magician?
Yeah. He said Jesus was a magician. What part?
What you just said.
What part? What part is not true? Huh?
The whole thing you just said, that Josephus went and investigated that Jesus was a magician.
Yeah,
I can't remember the exact. Remind me what happened then, please.
Josephus he mentions Jesus twice.
And what did he say?
Contested scholarly debate over whether or not Christians literally forged the entire passage or if it's partially interpolated. So that is called the Testimonium Flavianum. The other mention is Jesus, who's supposedly brother of James, who's called the Christ. That's it.
Okay, there was another guy then. There was another guy. I can't remember his name.
So here's the thing, right? There's also a passage. I mean,
that's easy. You can Google that. You can Google that real quick.
I'm sorry.
I said you can Google what I said. Who said Jesus was a magician? That's very simple.
Testimonium. I've seen it before. I've read it before. So my point is different, right? Josephus also records in an instance that he saw a star in the sky become a sword, that he, in the temple, a lamb was birthed from a cow, and he also records that people saw chariots and troops traversing the clouds in the sky. And he even says, I myself might have thought that this was a fable if it was not for eyewitness testimony. So I don't think Josephus, relying on eyewitness testimony, is enough to ground the resurrection of Jesus. I definitely believe Jesus existed, but I don't think you're going to get very far citing Josephus. Josephus is a so-so historian. He was reliable in some cases, unreliable in others, but it's not going to get you to a resurrection.
Oh, it's not going to give me the resurrection. But here's a little point that I think of a lot of things that people, they say weird stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like you guys say. There is a demonic. Would you say there's demonic entities, demons, devils? Would you say that? Yes or no?
I don't believe in demons. No.
Nope.
So you're saying Satanists? They do it for no reason? Is that what you're saying? Satanic people?
I'm not saying they do it for no reason.
There's a lot of government officials are deep in satanic occult traditions. So you're saying those guys. What we say is there's a hint of truth of what they're doing. They do a lot of psychological manipulation, demonic. Like what about them people that do seances? Bring up, they talk to spirits and stuff like that. Are you saying they're all false?
I mean, me personally, I've never experienced anything like that. When I was a Christian, I would experience people who believed they were under the Holy Spirit, under the influence of the Holy Spirit. There were times I thought that, but I never came across any type of, I mean, I did believe in demons and Satan when I was a Christian, but I never experienced anything that nowadays I would look back and say, oh yeah, I mean, that was definitely some type of manifestation of an evil spirit.
So we're getting off track though from
investigate that. Investigate that. If there is demonic entities, and there's a lot of Santeria in Mexico, and they got a lot of witnesses that say those demonic demons, they try to do evil things to them once they, you know what I mean? I don't know. You got to think about it. If there's good and evil.
I want to get back on track with resurrection though, because we are getting off topic, and the topic of this stream is simply prove Jesus rose from the dead. And we say you can't. That's our claim, right? Is that you believe in something we don't believe anymore.
Sure.
Both of us were Christians. Both of us believe Jesus rose from the dead.
What kind of Christians were you? What was your? Yes, it does. 100%.
Why does it matter?
Because if you were a Calvinist, they believe that you have no free will, which you do.
So what does that do? Let's say I was a Calvinist. Pretend. Why? So does that mean that I couldn't believe Jesus rose from the dead?
No, it means that Calvinists, they think that everything is predetermined. So they go by their feelings. And so if you feel like there's no Jesus, instead of looking at the evidence of God, that there is a God.
You?
I just call myself I call myself a non-denomination Christian. I mean, I just believe the Bible. What's that?
That's exactly what I was. Yeah, I was a non-denominational.
Okay,
Christian.
Cool.
And at one point, I was that. Yeah, for sure. So
and why did you leave the church? Why did you leave the church?
Though, as far as the claim for the resurrection that you're supposed to make a case.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very simple. There's evidence of God. Evolution is false. Every Piltdown Man, Lucy the monkey that they were saying part ape.
Has nothing to do with the resurrection.
Yes. There is a God, is my point.
Okay.
Those are all false. Those are all false. So evolution is false, right?
Evolution has nothing to do with the resurrection.
What just happened?
It's either there's a God or there's not a God. So you guys believe that there's no God, right?
Inanna, listen, Inanna is the true goddess, okay? She rose from the dead 2,500 years, 2,000 years before Jesus, and we should worship her because there's a God, and there's an actual ancient text written in tablets on stone about her resurrection. Do you believe that?
Prove it. Very simple.
If I show you the ancient text that was written by the original scribe that documents that she has descended into the underworld, died, and for 3 days and 3 nights, then rose again from the dead, would you believe it?
What's her name? What's her name again?
Inanna. Yes. Would you believe that if I showed you an ancient tablet that shows
that's all she did? Is that all she did? Is rise from the dead? Is that it?
That's pretty good, I think.
That's pretty damn good.
That's it.
You can rise from the
Did
dead.
Did she create the world? Who created the world though?
Enlil, I imagine, in this particular myth, but yeah.
Yeah, but she didn't say that though, did she?
Who said that she she's not the one narrating the story. Did Jesus write down any gospels?
No, he didn't. He didn't.
So why does it matter? How do you know what Jesus really said?
Do you got evidence of this? What's the evidence you have?
Evidence of that what? That Jesus right? The gospel?
You for the evidence.
That this person rose from the dead. What's your evidence?
The ancient tablet literally says she descended through the 7 layers into the underworld, dies, is hung on a hook like a piece of meat, and then resurrects 3 days later.
So you're saying that this person has more evidence than Jesus Christ? Is that what you're saying? Because Jesus Christ is the most documented person of that time in the world.
Say someone exists.
Yes, 100% he is.
By the way, Steve,
look it up. 100%. Jesus Christ is the most.
I have looked it up.
So
okay, who's more documented at that time than him? Name one.
Augustus?
Caesar Augustus? No way. That's a lie.
Way better evidence.
That's a lie. There's a lot of Caesar.
I'm not a skeptic that's going to claim we don't have a lot of evidence for Jesus. I certainly would not say that. But to say that he is the most well-attested individual in antiquity,
that's easy. Just Google that. Anybody in this doc, please go Google that. Who's more Caesar Augustus or Jesus Christ? Who's more documented?
So
bring up that poll, please. Poll that. Go ahead. Sorry.
This will recognize you have onosmatic, you literally have coins, right, of the Caesar from the time he reigned. You have archaeological evidence of the guy at the time he reigned. You have documents from historians who are actually talking about the guy, what he was doing at the time he reigned. You have no contemporary evidence. You have no archaeology of Jesus. You have nothing of the contemporary period where Jesus was at that time where Jesus
nothing.
Is at. What contemporary evidence do you have?
They got the tomb that he died in. They got the multiple eyewitness accounts. They got Caesar Augustus is the one who was it that crucified him? I don't know if he didn't say he did it, but he was mentioned in his documentary. Let me see, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. His brother, people that wrote about him. You know what I mean, he wasn't a king. He wasn't a king, so he wouldn't have a coin made after him. So maybe you had some good points. I like your points on the Caesar Augustus, the coin and stuff like that. That doesn't mean he was the. There's multiple Caesar Augustus. He wasn't the only one. You know that, right?
Octavian, Caesar Augustus.
Okay, I could be wrong about that, but there's multiple Caesars. I could be wrong.
Well,
okay, so look, can we let's circle this back around.
Let's say we're tied. We're tied. How about that?
No, you're good. So far, right? We've asked what evidence do you have for the resurrection? You started with God exists, and we granted that. Remember, we said, okay, we'll take on, for the sake of argument, we'll take on the background knowledge that God exists. And then you said, well, we have eyewitness testimony, but we've demonstrated that eyewitness testimony alone does not guarantee that what is relayed is true. And then we started talking about evolution for some reason. So I want to know, what evidence do we have to reasonably believe that Jesus rose from the dead, other than the fact that you believe God exists?
The only evidence that we have is the eyewitnesses' account, and it changed lives. 3/4 of Rome became Christian when they heard about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And once that happened, boom, Christianity took off, and half the world believes in Jesus Christ up to this day. So if you're saying half the world who believe in Jesus Christ, billions of people are wrong, then hey, who's the minority, the atheist or the Christian? Who's the minority?
The percentage of people that accept a proposition does not tell you at all whether or not the proposition is true.
Yeah, it's a good indicator of who's wrong and who's right. It 100% is.
Hold on. If you would have gone back to Jesus's time, the majority of people believed that there was a solid dome above the earth. That certainly doesn't mean that there was. Right?
Not Christians. We didn't, because no, it is not in the Bible. The Bible says, the oldest book in the Bible says that the world is a sphere and hangs on nothing. That's the book of Job. That's not in the Bible. They should have read the Bible.
The consensus said Jesus deserved to die. That's why he got crucified. They cheered and wanted his death. Were they right that he should be killed? That he is guilty of the things that they're accusing him of?
If you read your Bible, you knew that the Lamb slain for the world was already prophesied. That was his destiny. So he was that's what takes us to heaven. His burial and resurrection.
You're like very specific question, and we're dodging. We can't even stay on topic at all. This is just funny.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Is the consensus according to the gospel is that Jesus was guilty of blasphemy and that he deserved to die? Is the consensus correct that Jesus should have died, because you accept the majority as evidence for the claim?
Well, he spoke the truth, but they didn't believe him that he was God. So in their law,
right about him,
he deserved. What's that?
We should accept the consensus about Jesus from your own sources. The majority of people did not believe he was the Son of God.
We don't know it's the majority. We don't know it was the majority.
The consensus.
These are leaders. These are leaders. Those are the Pharisees.
The crowd that was cheering on, telling him to be crucified. The majority caused him to get crucified. Is my point. Should we go?
And we don't know that. That's not documented. So that's not documented. We don't know that. We don't know it was the majority.
Okay,
Chief,
the Gospels literally say.
Chief, is the majority of the world Christian? The majority?
I believe so. I believe so.
You would
be
wrong.
Majority means 50% or more. So is 50% or more of the world population Christian?
It was for a long time.
I asked if it is.
It's probably it's the big. Well, what's the majority then? Tell me, please.
I told you a majority is 50% or more. So what's the Christian?
No, majority means if it's 30%, if it's 40% Christianity, 10% Muslim, 10%. That means it's majority. That's common sense.
No.
You gotta be.
Majority means 50% or more.
Okay, well, tell me what is then, please.
I'm telling you that a majority is 50% or more. So is 50% or more of the world population Christian?
What is the majority religion? Is it atheism? Is it Muslim? What is it?
If you're asking, and I think I know what he's trying to do.
It's Christianity. That's a very simple question. It's Christianity. The majority of religion is Christianity. Very simple.
Why
don't you answer that question?
Chief,
why didn't you want to answer that question?
Do I have to mute you, dude? Do I have to mute you? Let me answer your question, because I'm actually going to support what you're saying, but I want to make it very clear what Steven's saying. Okay. So here's the problem. The majority is 50% or higher of the whole population. Your question is, which religion has more devotees that, believe? Number one most viewed religion in the world that people believe is Christianity. Number two is Islam. Number 3 would probably fall behind, I imagine, Hinduism or something like that. And then you have different religions. I'm probably wrong about the third. I don't know what the third is. The problem is when you take that whole cluster, other than Christians, you gather them together, there is way more.
That's not how that works. That's not how that works. Sorry.
Why is it
no,
most
it ain't.
of the world believe in Jesus then?
Don't worry. Hey, you guys have a great day, man. There's no use talking to you. God bless you, man. Take it easy.
But last question. Why is it that most of the world doesn't believe in Jesus? I guess he's not going to answer it. All right. Well, look.
It was nice. It was nice talking to you, Chief. At least he was cordial for the most part.
Dude, what the hell just happened, bro? Look, so he wanted primary sources, and I've got all these sources for Julius Caesar, Caesar Augustus, all this stuff. Richard C. Miller documents this in his book, Resurrection and Reception.
Right.
Where eyewitnesses claimed that they saw the Caesars on roads, appear to them on roads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Emmaus story. Anyway, like there's all sorts of cool stuff, right? But bro, there was no, like, you can't even know what a majority, meant.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I didn't want to pull the math card and be like, I have a degree in math, because that's such a simple. Which I do, but that's just like such a simple question. Do you know what a majority is?
I thought he was playing around. I really, really just thought, okay, he's just pulling our leg at this point. But no, it seems like he really believed that stuff. Like,
no, he did for sure. And I mean, he was a nice dude, but
very nice.
He was just evading. I don't know why he started talking about evolution, and I don't.
Look, he's just, I would call that the average, normal, typical, believer.
Yeah, I think
in there.
He's the type of person who actually doesn't look like he's studied apologetics a whole lot, because I think he would have, your normal apologist will say, okay, let's talk about the resurrection. Let's talk about minimal facts versus maximal facts. Let's talk about historical reliability. Let's talk about the empty tomb, which granted, he did bring up the empty tomb at some point. But I mean, yeah, you could tell he's actually not well-versed in apologetics. So he was just kind of all over the place. Yeah.
Pat, thank you for the super chat. I just love how they think the Bible is the oldest. Pat says, it's all mythology, no proof, son, it ain't. Thank you, Pat. And then again, soon as they say just Google it, all cred is lost.
Well, and I don't know if you caught it, Derek, because when you were talking about Inanna at some point, you said, well, it's there on a tablet, and he told you to prove it, and he's just shifting the burden of proof. Like, instead of me proving the resurrection, you go ahead and prove Inanna.
Because the next step would be, if I show him a picture of the ancient tablet, how do I know that tablet's real on that picture? Or there's always a move that gets made to distance themselves from having to accept the fact that, look, stories are told and they go way, way back. And Jesus is also picking up on stories. In fact, I would argue that if it weren't for the legendary nature of this material, Christianity would not have succeeded. I think it's the storytelling that made it so potent. It's the powerful narrative storytelling, the prose in which they wrote it.
It is. It is. I don't know. I think. Oh, go ahead. Read that super chat.
No, go ahead. Make your comment, then we can get.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I think he actually represents the type of person that, because he's not well versed in apologetics, you can actually try to have a genuine conversation with, but he just jumped around so much that it was possible to try to pin him down on one topic. I kept trying to circle it back around to the resurrection, and then we went off in a million different directions. Like, I could see people in the chat, maybe that came in late, they kept saying, like, what does this have to do with the resurrection, or what does this have to do with Jesus? Because this guy was like all over the place.
It was fun, don't get me wrong, but it's like, holy crap, what's next? The reptilian government, and, like, you know what I mean?
He started talking about the Satanists in the government and stuff.
That was, I was like, oh God, here we go. Like, what's next? Real Daniel Kahn, I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for the super chat. Why was James, the brother of Jesus, silent on the resurrection if it was such an important event? Why do the Ebionites, who are successors of James, claim Jesus wasn't resurrected? I didn't know
that. I didn't know that the Ebionites are successors of James. Is that true?
I do. I would imagine they're in the similar vein. I don't know for sure. In fact, I have an episode that I'm supposed to do tomorrow With is it tomorrow with James Tabor on the Ebionites?
I thought James Tabor was next week, but I could be wrong. I'm sure you know your live streams better than I do.
No, you know it better than I do. It's the 31st. So
Okay.
I'm just so busy. So the 31st, which is Tuesday, we're going to talk about all sorts of things. Ebionites is one of them. We've got a course with him on dealing with this topic, but I didn't know they didn't claim he was not. I didn't know that they thought he wasn't Ebionites resurrected. Did the Ebionites claim Jesus wasn't resurrected?
Well, while you're looking that up, I mean, I think, James is a common talking point of apologists, because they'll say, why did James convert if he was skeptical of Jesus's ministry during his ministry, right? Something must have happened to convert him. And maybe that's true. We don't really know exactly how skeptical James was, right? All we know is that during Jesus's ministry, James really wasn't a part of it. And so why did James come to be part of the Jesus movement? We don't have any writings of James, so it's really hard to say. Well, you could say it might have been the resurrection. It could have been something else. We really don't know. We don't. And again, this is one of my main arguments against the resurrection is our evidence is so ambiguous in so many different ways. There's so much ambiguity in it. And even if you want to claim that we have eyewitness testimony, we don't have eyewitness testimony of somebody like James, right? So it's kind of a hard apologetic talking point to make, in my opinion.
So just to get the super chat, we do have a caller in the back. We'll bring on in just a second.
Okay.
And it says just asking if the earliest patristic reports on the Ebionites directly, because later heresiologists often blur their views together. The key issue is whether they denied resurrection itself or denied Jesus's divinity, pre-existence, while still accepting his resurrection. Probably not, it says. What our sources say is the Ebionites denied Jesus's pre-existence and divinity, and many denied the virgin birth. But the surviving patristic reports do not make the Ebionites deny Jesus's resurrection a defining Ebionite belief. In fact, one standard summary of the patristic evidence says that some Ebionites kept the Sunday as a memorial of his resurrection, which strongly suggests at least some Ebionites accepted that Jesus had been raised. So maybe there was a mixed crowd, I imagine, like all movements. But the question then also is that James, we have a letter, of course, I think you mentioned this, right? The letter, which is likely not written by James, but James Tabor actually argues that there's only two mentions of Jesus in that letter, in the first chapter and the second chapter. He said, if you take the name Jesus out of that letter and translated the Greek into Hebrew and went into a synagogue, they would never know this was in a Christian Bible. They would never have a clue. So it might be in the vein of James that you get this this letter. I'm not really sure. Okay, really appreciate that. And then Alex, thank you for the super chat. This dude is playing 5D bingo.
Bingo, I like that.
That's good. That's good. Alex, thank you so much for the super chat. Okay. All righty. We're taking up the caller. Here we are. Christina, welcome to MythVision.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you a Christian who believes in the resurrection?
I believe he was resurrected before he died.
How does that work?
If you don't accept Jesus in the Heavenly Father before you die, then when you die, you die. So you have to be, the Father has to be known, and the Father has to know you before you are to die, or else you die. So that would mean to me that he was already resurrected when he was baptized.
So resurrected. So you're saying a spiritual resurrection? That's it?
No, once you have the Holy Ghost and you have the Spirit of truth within you, you don't see death. So even though the physical body might die, that's why they never recognized him when they saw him. It was always a different form. Peter didn't realize it was Jesus until the fish, and Mary didn't recognize him, and the 5,000, some didn't believe. Just everything was a different form.
So then why did they recognize him when he was before he died, despite the fact that he had already resurrected?
Because if you recognize the Father, this is what most Christians have problems with. They don't recognize the Father. The Father doesn't judge. He doesn't kill. So once you recognize the Father, you can recognize Jesus in other forms, just like you can recognize the Father in other forms. Even though let's just say they took on the form of me. You recognize them through the person. Like Mary was crying her eyes out about Jesus, and he was right there, and she didn't even see it because he was in a different form. She recognized, I don't know, the spirit. And people say Jesus is coming back. Well, he's not coming back. He's been coming back for 2,000 years. He comes to his temple built without hands, which is the Ecclesiastes, the Christians of the world. I'm Gnostic.
Okay. You're what? I'm sorry?
I'm Gnostic, so I get kicked out of churches all the time.
Look, I don't know what to say other than like, look, we're looking for practically someone who thinks Jesus rose from the dead as a historical fact, that he literally came out of the tomb, this kind of thing. And I don't really know. I mean, there's nothing I can really add to what you're ultimately claiming here, other than we don't agree with that interpretation, but the Gnostics are known for being heretical, right? I mean,
Christians do agree, y'all. They just don't know it because Peter, someone tells you to cast your net and they didn't recognize them until they catch the fish. And then he spoke to them. You know what I'm saying? If your friend tells you to cast the net to one side of the boat, you're not going to recognize his voice or who he is. And the other thing in Mary, you're not going to notice is Jesus standing there. You're trying your eyes out to. And if you go into Gnostic text, you got the form of the little boy. It was 3 forms with the Apocalypse of John. And just every one of them, they didn't recognize him off the bat. He showed up in a room with the doors locked and the windows locked, and the form of him came into the room. Just you agree, but you don't agree because you don't understand what I'm saying, probably. But he takes on different forms. He's within us. That's why you're not supposed to worry about what to say at the end times, because the Holy Spirit that's in you will speak for you. You're not to worry about what to say in the end times.
Well, but I thought you said that if you recognize the Father, you would recognize him. So why did they not recognize Jesus when they were talking to him?
Because they didn't recognize the Father. Most Christians that I've run into, to be honest with you, I haven't run into one Christian yet that knows the Father. I mean, he's been with you for so long, Philip, yet you don't know him. Like, you can't. Everybody says Jesus is coming back. He's coming to judge. He doesn't judge. The Father doesn't judge. He didn't send Jesus into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world. Everybody's calling Jehovah the Father. Jehovah is not the Father. All through the Bible, everything Jehovah stands for, Jesus rejected, and everybody in the world thinks Jehovah is the Father, and he simply isn't.
Okay, I think we're getting into preaching a little bit, which is fine. I appreciate you coming on, but I think we're looking more for people that are actually going to defend historically that Jesus resurrected from the dead, empty tomb, appearances, ascension to heaven, and all that. So I appreciate your viewpoint. It's actually something I think wouldn't be a bad discussion another time, but yeah, I think right now we're trying to look for.
I am Christian, though. Just I'm a different form of Christianity, I guess.
That's all right.
Well, Christina, thank you so much for coming in, and maybe in the future you can come back and bring some more insights.
Love y'all. Have a beautiful day.
You too. All right. Look, got some super chats here.
Let's see them.
Let me get those. Gnosis, a Gnostic in the house. I'm just kidding. You mentioned Thomas being Jesus's twin. I like to assume that's a metaphor for walking like Christ. What would you assume the resurrection symbolizes?
I mean, I don't know that I believe in much symbolism with regards to the resurrection. I think that the accounts are attempting to be literal eyewitness accounts, so I don't find too much symbolism in there. I don't know about you, Derek.
I think if you go to the Gospel of Thomas, the
Gospel of Thomas.
Yeah, you do get this idea. So many have thought Didymus means twin. Thomas might have been Jesus's twin in some of the early traditions. Right. But there is, when I spoke to, I would say, the Gnostic queen, Elaine Pagels, on this topic, she does see the whole idea of light as resurrection more so than literally coming out of graves. Because if I asked her, you think Jesus literally walked out of the tomb? I don't know what her answer would be. I doubt it would be, Yeah, that's
Is she
literal.
a Christian?
Yeah, she's a Christian.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
remember now, when you get in the like higher education,
Yeah.
Christians will identify as Christian, and most Christians who are part of the more dogma church won't count them as Christians. And I just say, if you call yourself a Christian, I count you as Christian. That's how you roll. But I don't know ultimately what to make other than resurrection seems to be more of a realized, kind of like our caller just came on and said, it's like an internal spiritualization in the temple, which is your body and all that kind of stuff. And that is something you kind of see in Ephesians. Yeah.
No, and I mean, there's definitely symbolism, especially in Paul's letters. I guess I was just making the point that usually it's still, there is a historical bedrock there, or an attempted historical bedrock, right? What I did want to ask her, but I think it would have curtailed the discussion even more, was if Jesus was already resurrected, then how did he actually die? Because if he didn't really die, then how did he atone for sins? But I didn't want to go down because she was a little preachy. She was cool. She was fine, but I figured that'd be another 5 minutes of her explaining.
No, it was interesting to I'm like, the first thing got me. In fact, our next super chat, thank you so much, Gnosis. I hope I tackled that a little bit there. Next super chat is Pat says Rex resurrected before he died. What? And that was kind of our point. Like,
yeah,
what?
When she said that, I was thinking the same thing.
And then Pat says homie is not agnostic, but delusion of grandeur. Yes. Oh, you are agnostic.
Talking about me?
Yeah, you are agnostic.
Yeah, I am agnostic.
Yeah. So I think they're oh no, maybe they're Gnostic. They're saying they're Gnostic.
Oh yeah, Gnostic, I guess.
Yeah. They're Gnostic is what they were saying. So yeah. Again, I would love to have I don't know, a conversation where
we stay on track, stay on point.
Yeah, where we can talk about what's going on in the text and reason with each other about why we're not convinced and why they're convinced and go from there. So we do have a caller in the back here. JMM Virtua, will you wave at me just so I can see that you're a real person? I can barely make out a silhouette in the back here, in the back of our studio. So can you wave at me? Virtua, JMM Virtua. Hello. Okay. Let's see. All right. Anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I hope we can get somebody that actually, like you said, tries to stay on point. And yeah, I mean, look, I'm we're in the business of we dialogue a lot with apologists, and sometimes it can get frustrating because it's like, they're being apologists, they're trying to defend what they've already concluded, which is totally fine. But now I'm kind of like, no, I really want to talk to an apologist.
Yeah. Okay, we have another one. Wave at me, Wesley, in the back. There we go. Wesley, welcome.
How's it going, Wesley?
Oh, I can't hear you.
I can't either.
No audio yet.
I think he's trying to fix it.
Okay, no worries. Here, I'll take you down for a second while you fix your audio. Just give you a chance. We're waiting on his audio here. Anyway, anything you want to add? I mean, I would like to, of course, deal with the topic at hand. But
yes.
And by the way, when do you have a hard stop? About another 50 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Safe.
And if we get into a really good conversation, I might be able to stretch that a little bit, but I guess we'll see.
Okay. Let's see. All right, let's bring Wesley back. Let's see if we can. Wesley. Nothing? Do you hear him?
No, I can't hear him.
So go in the bottom left near your microphone, Wesley, and look for a little up arrow and see if you can't find one of your. You should be able to find a way to fix it down there in the settings. Nothing yet.
Thanks, Pat. I saw you in the chat. He said,
that working now?
Yes.
Thanks, Pat.
Okay.
Hey, so Wesley, are you a Christian, and do you think Jesus rose from the dead?
Jesus is God. There's no other God. There's never been any other God, and there never shall be any other God.
So he rose from the dead.
I'm listening.
I was asking you if Jesus rose from the dead.
Sure. Yes. He was killed on the cross. He never lied. And 3 days after he was murdered on the cross, he arose from the dead.
Okay, great. Why do you believe that that's a reasonable inference to make, Wesley?
Oh, I'm not going to prove to you that Jesus is God. Jesus has made you against him.
No. I'm not asking you to prove that Jesus is God. I'm asking you for evidence that Jesus resurrected.
Here's what you're going to do. You're going to be offered some money soon. A lot. Okay. About $32,523 in electronic money. To get that money, you're going to be branded with a barcode called the Omni, O-M-N-I. You can't get the money if you don't get that barcode.
O-M-M-I?
O-M-N-I.
Okay. Omni. Okay.
It will come within months of a nuclear explosion in the city of Chicago. And that day, Washington, D.C. and New York are going to be destroyed. Now, I want you to get that money and get that barcode, and then I'm going to come and visit you face to face.
Why
and
would
I want you to play dumb, and I want you to pretend like you don't get it. You don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm some kind of troll crazy shit, and get that barcode and drop dead at my feet with gray scabs on your face, starving to death. You got it? That's how much I need to prove to you that Jesus is God. You do that.
Thanks, Wesley.
That's what
What just happened, Wesley? Why the hate?
Omni barcode.
Thank you, Wesley.
Get it.
Why the hate? My friend, why the hate?
Dude, why the craziness, man? Why are we getting all the nuts? Like, these people are absolutely...
Oh my gosh. Bro, I didn't even kick him. You know how you were saying bye? Like, I wanted to see where this would go.
I did not.
Like,
I did not.
He just dipped. I want to know why the hate. You know, there's a weird thing. We need to talk about this for a second, because I know this isn't resurrection, but bro, I have this fascination right now where I'm actually looking, and who knows where I'll be in 5 years on my studies. You know, I wonder if Jesus was really a insurrectionist. And I'm not talking about a pacifistic one. I'm saying potentially violent. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I'm just going with the scholars, and I'm looking at some of them that do make that case.
Right.
And then the other is pretty much the consensus view is that Jesus was not violent, but he had violent intentions apocalyptically, that God...
His eschatology was violent. Yeah.
His eschatology was violent, that God's going to come and do what this guy's hoping. You're going to drop dead. You're going to, like it kind of a nutty, insane fetish towards the death of people who don't agree with him or believe like him or whatever it might be. And so, I wrestle with this, but I sit here and I see this and I go, you're telling me that this kind of ideology doesn't fester into people who think like that? Like, that's harmful. And it's in your sacred text. And a lot of people who aren't, I don't want to, I'm not trying to be derogatory here. There are mental issues at hand with what we just saw. Okay. And there are people who may not have diagnosis, that may not be as obvious as that are running like political and doing things in warfare and all of that with this kind of eschatology in their mind.
Dude, you know what's weird? Is just looking at him, I was like, oh, here's a nice gentleman. he's gonna be amicable in good faith, and my Lord, that took a sharp turn. No, yeah, dude. I mean, I don't know. He's the type of person that's looking at, and we don't need to turn this political, but he's the type of person who's looking at what's going on in Iran, and he's like, all right, the end is coming.
Yep. Yep. And I'm going to tell you what I'm mostly pissed off about is that I better get that 32,000 freaking.
That's right. I don't care if I get a barcode with it.
I'll take the barcode, Omni and all. Tattoo that Joker, on the other arm. Okay. Omni right here. give me my 32 damn K. Don't come promising me 32K and
but then you're gonna drop dead at his feet afterwards. So I don't know if that's worth it.
I mean, it might be worth it. Shit. I mean,
that was weird, dude.
Dude,
That was
what
really weird.
was that? I can't. I gotta clip these. These are their own videos, man. This is what in the
We've gotten
world?
some characters, man. They've been all different ends of the spectrum.
Okay, we have another caller. Can you wave at me? I believe it's Joanne. Can you wave at me just to make sure that you're a real person? And awesome. Okay, cool. Welcome to MythVision. Is it Joanne?
Hey, yeah, I'm good.
Joanne.
Welcome. Seems a delay.
Oh, so you guys, what are you guys talking about?
The resurrection. You're a Christian?
Okay. Of course.
Okay, just checking.
I'm a crazy Christian.
I don't know. We've seen some interesting ones. I don't know if you can cross that threshold that we've already seen.
Yeah, the guy before me was a little crazy. I mean, I'm all about scaring people into loving Christ, but that was a bit extreme.
Yeah, it was weird. Okay. So you believe Jesus, that Jesus' resurrection is a historical event. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. Our question would be, what evidence or what reason should we have for believing that?
Well, the gospel was Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, right? Because they were written, but there was 500 witnesses to seeing Jesus resurrect. So
Okay,
I mean, granted, the witnesses.
Go ahead.
Granted, the witnesses are, from back then. We don't have any witnesses for George Washington, but people, the Gospels are history. Just like George Washington is history. It's not mythology like Hinduism. The Bible is written as a historical document. So those 500 witnesses, those were like actual people who saw Jesus rise.
Okay. Do we have any of the testimony from those 500?
Well, that's what Luke, when he starts off Luke, he says, he's like, I've gathered all the testimonies, and that's what I'm writing down. And he starts off with what he collected from Jesus's mother, Mary. I don't call her Mother Mary. I'm not Catholic. Yeah. And Luke was a doctor, and he investigated it, and he just took everybody's notes like you would an investigation.
Okay, well, so Luke doesn't exactly say who he talked to.
He doesn't.
We don't exactly know his methodology. We don't exactly know when Luke wrote specifically. Luke likely wrote at least maybe 4 decades after Jesus, possibly more. I know Derek believes most likely he wrote even later. Mm-hmm. So how do we know that he can rule out things like legendary development and different psychological and sociological factors that we see in other religious movements?
Give me an example, please.
Sure. So have you ever heard of the Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson? He lived about only a few decades ago. Have you heard about him?
No.
So he was a very famous Hasidic Jew, and his followers believed him to be the Messiah. And when he died, he had a very similar trajectory to Jesus, although he wasn't murdered. He just died a peaceful death. But after he died, many of his followers claimed to have seen him. And and there was a tomb. He did have a tomb. He didn't have an empty tomb. He was laid in his tomb, but you still have people claiming that they saw him alive again. Multiple people, not just like one person saying they saw him over here and another person over here. Like you have multiple people saying that they saw him in a group, right? So my point is, we see this type of thing, and there's all sorts of parallels in antiquity too during Jesus's time. But I'm just giving you an example now, right? We have eyewitness testimony of these kinds of things. And my question is, how can you rule out things like legend or myth or sociological and psychological factors like religious groupthink?
Okay, so going along what you just said, I don't even know who that guy is. So that's how you rule him out, right? Like everybody knows who Jesus is. Like there's not somebody, and I'm not saying majority rules or whatever like that first guy, But if Jesus wasn't real, he would have died out like that guy did. And also Jesus's tomb is empty. So that guy is still in his tomb and they made up those lies. Jesus' tomb is empty, and it goes along with what they're saying. Like, why would he still be there if he resurrected? That doesn't make sense.
What do you mean, why would he
But
still
his
be
tomb
there?
is empty.
How do we know that his
Well,
tomb
so
is
that rabbi guy, you're saying that rabbi guy, people said they saw him resurrect, right? But his body is still in the tomb. The people who said that they saw Jesus be resurrect, the tomb is empty. His tomb
I'm not
belongs
claiming...
to that Joseph Artemis.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. I'm not saying that those two cases are completely identical, but they're analogous. And again, there's many more that I can pick. I'm just trying to see why you'll accept why you would accept eyewitness testimony in one case, but not in another, right? Another example, and this has nothing to do with people rising from the dead, and Derek and I have already brought it up multiple times, is in the Book of Mormon, you have 8 witnesses that saw the golden plates that Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon from. And you have 3 eyewitnesses who claim to have seen the angel Moroni themselves, and they signed legal affidavits with their names on it. So we actually know that we have eyewitness testimony in that case, whereas in the Gospels, we could kind of argue whether or not we have eyewitness testimony. So do you believe those eyewitnesses?
Oh no, of course not. Those guys with that Joseph Mormon guy, he was crazy. Like, he added to the Bible. He was a polygamist. I'm pretty sure he was a pedophile too. Like, obviously, no. The reason why I personally accept the resurrection story is because Jesus lived a clean life and he didn't hurt anybody. Although he did say he was coming back with a sword. I mean, he was nice the first time, not the second time. Yeah, so that's why I accept it. I mean, they say that faith is a gift, right? And I'm not trying to convince you guys or anything. I hope that you guys one day gain faith, but I've been gifted with faith, and I'm not going to run from it, and I'm going to defend Jesus, and I believe he rose from dead, and he's coming back. And that's it. The proof is in my heart. The proof is in my Bible right here. Where's that rabbi's Bible? All these people who have tried to say that they were Jesus, they've gone away. There was even somebody who came before Jesus who said he was Jesus. And when they were going to crucify Jesus, the Pharisees were like, let him die for the nation. If he's not real, he'll die out. And he didn't die out. Like, he's still going.
Okay, so there's a lot there that I want to comment on. Let's circle back to the Gospels themselves. So again, how do we know that what the Gospels record is accurate? Again, how do we know that there was no legendary development? I know you mentioned Luke, but Luke comes on the scene decades later. So how do you know in the early years that there weren't, again, social psychological factors that contributed to this belief? How do you know that the disciples didn't falsely come to believe that Jesus resurrected from the dead, for instance?
Well, like, when a lot of people, you don't die for a lie, right? Like, I mean, if I knew Jesus wasn't real, like if I knew like we're just making this stuff up, when it came to me being like hung, I'd be like, nope. You know what I mean? Nobody dies for a lie. Right. But when it comes to that,
Joseph Smith, do you think that he knew he was lying?
Oh yeah, 100%. That guy was delusional. And I understand what you're saying.
Did you know he died for what he believed in?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I didn't know that. I thought he was killed.
Yeah, he was. Just like Jesus was killed. He was killed by a mob.
No, but I thought he was killed for lying.
Well, no, he never said he lied. He believed to the moment he died. He had a mob of 150, 200 people kill him for what what you're saying he believed in was a lie. And listen, I agree. I think that Joseph Smith isn't true. Now, where it gets sensitive, I think that you have deeply held, cherished beliefs. And so, my whole family's Christian, but like when we're trying to unpack this, there's so much you're saying that I was like, I think I'm glad we have someone who's not telling us you're going to get 32K and you're going to die tomorrow. And then like the other guy, like you're much more reasonable here. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But I didn't want to step on Stephen's toes and having you engage, but there's a lot to unpack here. From the 500 that you mentioned, we don't have a single, all we have is hearsay. We don't have a single, we don't know who, we don't know where. We just have to trust in ancient text. Luke never says who he is in that gospel. These attributions were added by church fathers. There's a lot of material that like we would not be able to cover in this stream, of course, to unpack why we think the way we do. And maybe me and Stephen don't agree on every little detail about how to unravel some of this too. But we do think this is legendary. We do think that legends can build overnight. In fact, reading Peregrinus Proteus's death and Lucian, within a day or two, a legend already built about him ascending to Mount Olympus from a pyre. Within 2 days, they already had a story about this guy becoming a god and ascending into heaven. So it's like we are looking at this and we're just going, okay, there's too many people ascending to heaven. There's too many people, that die and are said to be seen after they die with Caesars and all this stuff. Why would we come to this and then go, oh, this one? And yes, you have your Bible. Yes, Bible's a very important document in the West. We've heard a lot of the apologetics and stuff, but we're just not, the needle doesn't move for us in the sense that God would have to show up. I'm going to just be real with you. It'd have to be like Thomas, okay? Like it would have to be like a doubting Thomas situation in order for me to be, I don't know about you, Stephen, but for me, I'm not going to read an ancient document and be convinced if it seems unbelievable. That's where I'm at, What about you, Stephen?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And I'm sorry that you don't believe, because I have a hope that you don't have, right? And you're going to wait until, according to the Bible, you're going to wait until you see Jesus coming on the clouds. And if you see him coming on the clouds, by then it's too late. You know what I mean? But I will pray for both of you for God to soften your heart towards him and to bless you with understanding, so that way you can open your heart to him. Because honestly, I'm not trying to preach to you guys.
Well, what if you're wrong and you're spending your whole life believing this and let's say you could go back and actually study the critical scholars like I like to do, and you find out, Jesus said he was going to
study them. Well, they just haven't been able to convince me.
The critical scholarship.
Yeah, like what about Josephus? Josephus talks about Jesus. He says that he talks about how Jesus was resurrected.
He talks about how Jesus was resurrected?
Yeah, Josephus said that.
Joanne.
He doesn't.
Wait, what?
He doesn't.
Pull the source up?
No, he does say that. I'm going to Google it right now.
So Josephus does mention Jesus, but he never mentions his resurrection.
He doesn't say he was resurrected. He said he definitely had followers.
He says, no, he does say, he talks about Jesus, and he talks about how Jesus was crucified. He does say that. Yeah. Or what if the Septuagint, or not the Septuagint, I'm saying the wrong word. What about the guy who stabbed Jesus in the side to make sure he was dead? He went on later to write about Jesus. And I think he was blind. They blinded him to try to keep him from talking about Jesus. And they cut his tongue out, something like that. And he was still able to speak.
What source?
The guy who stabbed him. I don't know his name. I probably should have found that out before I brought it up. Sorry.
It's all good. But I think I've never, I don't know a single person. Maybe there's some legend later that has a story about that Roman soldier piercing his side. I've never heard of any.
You've never heard of it? But no, you didn't hear about the guy. Okay, you got to Google that.
Yeah, I've never heard of an actual historian taking any source from a Roman soldier piercing his side as authentic or anything like that. So I wouldn't be shocked if 400 years, 500 years later, but that's legend. You know what I mean? And legends build all religions, and the Christians are really infamous for it, with the martyrdom stories that are legendary, all sorts of stuff. So I again, even a decade would be enough time for me to go, holy smokes, we have a whole system of theology developed. We have a whole, it doesn't take much time for religions to get off the ground and produce mythology like we witnessed in the 1820s to 30s with Joseph Smith. He created an entire system of theology, and people believed it. And in fact, there's a massive church in the United States right now that believes in it, and didn't take any time. And
that's unfortunate.
Dead for them to believe it either.
Yeah, and I think that's
if those people, sorry,
go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Thank you. I think that if those people who are following Joseph Smith, I don't know if you've ever encountered the Mormons, the Latter-day Saints, they push you away from the Bible. They will literally be like, read our Bible, and they won't tell you to read their Bible. And the Bible is very clear. You don't add or take from it. So if those people who follow Joseph Smith actually read their Bible, they would understand that he's a false prophet, and he has all the signs. I mean, the fact that he's a pedophile, that's like a red, like you should not like little kids. That's gross.
Yeah, we agree. Okay, we found some real.
Oh, good. I'm glad. It's nice to meet people who are not pedophiles.
Real quick, just so we're on the same page, 4th, 5th century, there was a legend that they named the Roman soldier Longinus, which likely is from a Greek word launch or lance. Legends in the Acta Pilati, part of the apocryphal Gospel of Nicodemus, describe his conversion, not his authorship. So he just converted according to legend, but we don't have any accounts by him. And then the Josephus quote that I was trying to pull up says, now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man. This is why scholars are questioning if this was really even Josephus. They think that Christians might have interpolated this whole passage, or at least partially fudged with the text, because it might not have been originally nice what Josephus might have said about Jesus. For he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. This is why scholars think Josephus didn't write it. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again the third day. This is the belief that Christians had. As the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him, and the tribe of Christians so named from him are not extinct at this time or at this day. So there is the indication that he is believed to have resurrected in Josephus. But as scholar, like in the critical scholarship, that's why I was bringing that up earlier, is they'll point out that this is either partially interpolated or in whole interpolated. And there's some who try to say most of it's authentic, but it's just relaying what Christians believed with a few things changed to give it a lightened tone. But Josephus himself wasn't a Christian. And that's where it's interesting. So I don't know why he would believe he really rose from the dead, or write he rose from the dead, if he didn't believe. If he didn't believe, which I don't think he did, he's just saying...
He was a journalist, wasn't he?
Historian.
Huh? I'm sorry.
He was a historian.
He was a historian. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they didn't have media back then.
I was going to say something, I cut Stephen off there.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess my question... No, thanks. Yeah, my question would come down. Look, even if Josephus did say that it was reported that Jesus resurrected from the dead, again, Josephus was writing decades after Jesus, right? And so my consistent question here has been taking the Gospels, taking what Josephus has said. How can we rule out sociological factors, psychological factors? How can we rule out legend? How can we rule out myth? How can we rule out the disciples believing what they believed on bad evidence and poor reasons? And that's even assuming that what we have are the eyewitness accounts, which is a big assumption. It's not something that I would normally grant, but even if I granted that, right, how can we know that that what we have in the Gospels is historically reliable? Because eyewitness testimony even won't get you that far. As you already conceded, right? We have eyewitness testimony to Mormonism, and yet we don't believe that for other reasons, right? So how do we know that what we have in the Gospels are not legendized accounts?
I mean, honestly, I don't really know how to answer that question, because I mean, you don't have eyewitnesses for George Washington. You don't have eyewitnesses for any people of history. But like when it comes to Jesus, everybody is so like, no, I want to know every single detail about it, right? It's like, but you don't, like, you see the ball of you see the ball of gas in the sky. You don't know every detail about it, but you accept it, right? Like you accept that it heats the planet. Like, I guess that's just what faith is. And I mean,
if I may,
I guess you guys just don't have faith.
Yeah, if I may, though, you said that we don't have eyewitnesses other than Jesus. You said in that, and Stephen was just pointing out, even with Mormonism, we do have eyewitnesses who claim that they saw these miraculous things, the golden plates, whatever. But there are ancient eyewitness accounts that testify to, like, a guy dies in a fuller shop, and they close up shop to go find the family. When they come back, the body's missing, and then people saw him on a road down the road, that he resurrects. He comes back from the dead. Aristeas of Proconesus is his name. There's a book if you're really interested in here. I mean, if you're interested, it sounds like you want us to jump to your side. But hear me out.
Of course I would. I would love to see you guys in heaven. You know what I mean? Because that's where I'm going. So
Look,
no, but
I think me and Stephen would both.
Will you tell me that guy's? Will you tell me that guy's name and the books, and I'll read it. And the next time you guys are live, I'll call in and we can get into it.
I'll have to find the book here. Go ahead, Stephen.
Oh, I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head of what the point of your position is. You said, it comes down to faith, and again, that's largely what it came down to when I was a Christian. I mean, I dabbled in apologetics and tried to argue for the resurrection of Christ on historical grounds, but at the end of the day, it was a faith position. So, I mean, I appreciate you for your honesty, but I think if at the end of the day, it comes down to faith, then we don't really have any type of concrete historical indicator one way or another, right? You're saying that the evidence is in a sense ambiguous, so we just need to have faith, right? I mean, do I represent your position correctly?
No, not necessarily, because I mean, there are people who have seen Jesus now, right? Like, I mean, there are people who have claimed to see him. There are people that have died and they were in a coma or whatever, and then they come back and they're like, I saw Jesus. So, right. I mean, what do you say about those people?
There's people who have seen Muhammad, right? And there's people who have seen Krishna and Vishnu. True. And so,
True. You make a valid point.
Here's the book.
What is it called? I can't see.
It's called Resurrection and Reception in Early Christianity. If you just look up the author, Richard C. Miller, you'll find it. It's a Rutledge. It's Resurrection and Reception in Early Christianity. And if you email me, I can get you these sources easier. There's another one called Mythologizing Jesus. This one's by Dennis McDonald. I think it might be easier if I just put in the private, well, really in the chat period, but I'll put it in the private chat in the back. So when you jump off here, you can email me and I will send you some sources for you to check out if you're really interested. I mean, I
am interested. You guys are definitely
a Christian that you should check out. This is a Christian scholar, Delcy Allison Jr., and he talks about the legendary material and the historical Jesus, but points out the Gospels are very legendary and yet still believes. So it's not either or. There are a lot of Christian scholars who may not fit the box of what many Christians demand people fit, but they have come to these reasoned conclusions through deep research and deep meditation over decades and most of their life. And they've said, hey, if I'm being honest, these texts are literary in nature. They're not bona fide history. The other thing you said earlier was that these are histories. They're not. They're Greco-Roman biography. And by the way, in Greco-Roman biography, that bios genre isn't always historical. Plutarch wrote about a guy named Homer who wrote the Homeric epics from the Iliad and the Odyssey. Scholars don't think Homer even existed, but nonetheless, the ancient world believed there was a poet named Homer that wrote, those texts. He wrote a life about a guy who didn't even exist. So in Greco-Roman bios, the same bios we find in the Gospels. So I'm not saying Jesus didn't exist. I'm simply saying that that genre, what we find the Gospels in, allows for flexibility between historical and even fictional people. And even in historical people's writings, they wrote fictionally. They wrote legend. Even the great historian Thucydides, who actually wrote history and not a bios, he would say stuff like, if they didn't have, he inserted quotes into people's mouths that he didn't have the evidence of. And he would say, well, on this occasion, I suspect that this is what he would say. That's like me saying, if you, let's say you and me were friends, or maybe we weren't friends, maybe I heard about you and you passed away and I'm writing a story and I say, Joanna said this. And later on, like, how did you find that? Well, I suspect because Joanna was a nice person, she probably said these words and inserted those in your mouth. You like, I'm making up something that you never really said. And
definitely not nice.
She said, you foolish. And yeah, anyway. Okay. So, Stephen?
No, I mean, I thanks for the discussion, Joanne. You've been, is it Joanne or Joanna?
It's Joanne, but everybody, I say my name's Joanne. They're like, "Oh, hi, Joanna." It's fine.
Yeah, like I just told
They
you.
just add me. Yeah,
No, Joanna, I
whatever.
appreciate you. I appreciate you being very amicable and being very agreeable. We appreciate the discussion, and I had a good time talking to you. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
I had a good time talking to you guys too. I am a Christian woman. That's one of our traits is agreeableness. So
Well,
you should know that.
We've seen some that are not so agreeable, so we thank you for being agreeable.
Oh, thank you. Well, I try to be true to Jesus, you know what I mean? But I'm going to read those books. Thank you for that information. I just love learning as much as I can. However, you guys will never separate me from Jesus. That's my God. I belong to him and he belongs to me.
You're welcome to believe whatever you want. We're just using our brains and having mental conversations and enjoying critical thought and all that. So feel free to call back. If
I love it. Have a good day, guys. Nice talking to you.
Nice to meet you, Joanne.
Bye. Awesome. We have to unpack that just a moment before we get to our next caller. And then after that caller, we're going to wrap things up because I really had a blast today. This has been a lot of fun, even with the wild stuff that's been going on, Stephen. I hope you have as well, man.
Oh yeah. I love these discussions when they're discussions, right? And they're not people just threatening us. No, I love people like Joanne are the best, right? Because she can sit down and have a conversation, not start shouting, and not start getting petulant. And look, I think, even though, we're not going to change anybody's mind with this, but I think we got down to the bedrock of her belief. And she said, it's just faith. It's just faith. And so, it makes sense because that's usually what it is.
Bingo. I'm just plugging you shamelessly. Everybody go subscribe. JMM Verta, 1 second in the back. We're going to hit these super chats. Then we'll get to you in just a second here.
Or JMM, you've been waiting a long time. I appreciate that.
I apologize for the wait. Your patience is godly. You might convert me just based on your patience here. Okay, Derek, I admit your guest is delusional, not Stephen. Okay. Thank you for the super chat. Gnosis 83 in the house. The Abrahamic eschatology has been motivation of wars for centuries. This is why I left. People are blinded by the dogma and refuse to see the truth.
Yep.
Thank you so much for that super chat, Gnosis.
That is
and then real Daniel Khan.
I think it's Daniel Khan.
Yeah, it's interesting that Christians can believe in Jesus, but not Joseph Smith. Paul had no evidence he spoke to Jesus. That's another interesting kind of distance. If you're looking at something like in a historical sense and you never met the guy historically in real world, and they told you, well, no, I'm getting like direct communication from heaven, in the ancient world, maybe that would have seemed pretty normal, but like we might today question someone who comes to say, no, this is the testimony I'm getting you is from like heaven.
Right.
And telling these things, you might go, I don't know about that, Thank you so much. Okay. We got testifies in the back. Okay. Eric, you better have a camera, man.
Oh,
Testify. Yeah. My buddy, Eric.
I know
first,
Testify.
we have one in front of Testify. We're going to get Verta, and then hopefully we can stick around for Testify.
Sounds
Are you
good.
cool with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. With that being said, because I don't need a million people popping into the live stream like last minute and all that kind of stuff, because that happens every stream. People pop in and they didn't hear me just say this. I'm going to go ahead and remove the pinned ordeal. That way we don't end up dealing with
7 more people.
Yes. Yeah, and I definitely don't want that because that happens every time. I'm sure others know what that's like. Okay, Verta, what's up? Verta. Nothing. I just try to add them, and that's fishy to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like I got to be very cautious about what happens here. Because people can try to hurt your channel. And if you don't know what's going on the screen, you never know. So I just tried to add them on the screen. All right. Testify. You got to show your camera, man. I got to know this is really you because anyone could come in. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, dude. Okay. You understand how this game works on YouTube, bro. So you should know. Welcome, man.
Hey. Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry. Not on camera now. I know I just kind of flashed real quick.
You're driving.
I'm driving. Yeah, I'm at work and all that jazz. So
stay alive,
yeah,
please.
sorry. Trust me, I'm fine. Everything's hands free.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
dude,
good.
long time no chat, and obviously, I don't have to ask if you believe. You know.
Yeah, I mean, we've had our fun discussions before, Derek. So
I've
think you
watched
kinda know
your
where I'm at.
channel. I've watched many a video on your channel, so it's nice to meet you because I've never met you
I think
before.
I just came across your channel recently. Somebody shared like a video in a Discord group or something. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't get to watch much yet, but
Oh, it's all right.
yeah, seems.
Well, we're glad to have you
Seems
on.
legit.
So yeah, let's talk about the resurrection. I believe you're a maximal facts. You hold to the maximal facts case. Is that correct?
I am a dirty McPologist.
Yes, he is. You know what? We've had our beef, haven't we, Eric? In the past, we've had some pretty rough moments. We're going to disagree, but I think, you know, at the end of the day, my goodness, we can be cordial. We can agree to disagree and have engagement, debate, discuss, whatever, and go from there. You know?
No. I'm going full Jay Dyer, Andrew Wilson
Oh,
on you.
please
I'm just
don't.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Please don't
I'm
go.
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So
No. We're good frenemies, Derek. So yeah.
I'll
Go ahead,
I'll
Steve.
unpack some of my beliefs here, just so that the burden's not totally on you. I'm an adherent of the of James Fodor's RHBS model, which I do think can adequately account even for a maximal case. Are you familiar with James Fodor's model?
It's been a while since I looked at it. I think I've read up on it before. I'm vaguely familiar. It's like RHBS, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, it's like RHBS. So the R stands for reburial. So
Right.
like I believe that the way to account for the empty tomb is postulating that either Jesus's body was moved by Joseph of Arimathea, and it was originally just intended to be a quick burial, which the Gospel of John kind of hints at, or that Jesus's tomb was robbed by grave robbers, which I actually think is more plausible, especially given like the Nazareth inscription. So that's R, and then H stands for hallucinations. And as far as Fodor posits it, he doesn't posit any group hallucinations. He posits personal hallucinations that eventually, through group religious experience and through things like maybe hysteria and suggestibility and like social and emotional contagion, might have led to group experiences. And then the B and the S do not stand for what some of the viewers think it stands for. The B stands for biases and the S stands for socialization. And so this kind of accounts for how we can get stories, even from eyewitnesses later on, that, this person saw Jesus, we ate with Jesus, so on and so forth, through things like memory distortion, reconstructive recall, memory conformity, collective memory, groupthink, all these different types of social and psychological phenomena that we know happen. And so that's how I would account for the facts that are in the gospel. And then that's me trying to give a lot of ground to someone like you, saying, okay, let's assume that we have eyewitness testimony and that they're largely reliable.
Gotcha. Can I ask you like some philosophical kind of background questions?
Sure.
If that's okay.
Sure.
I mean, if Jesus was resurrected from the dead, like what would you expect to see?
If Jesus was resurrected from the dead?
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe more to the point, and you could let me know if you're one of these evil Humians or something. No, I'm just messing with you. But like, is testimony? Would you say testimony could be sufficient to establish a miracle for you?
Oh, so that's a good question. Man,
because I feel like that kind of drives some of the background of how we could possibly approach the evidence. I'm not saying it has to,
sure,
but I'm saying that it could kind of cause us to have different, like, different standards than one another. I think we both should have a high evidential bar. Don't misunderstand me. Like that would be, we'd be stupid to, I'm an opponent of a lot of bad approaches to the resurrection. I want people to follow the evidence, and I want them to be able to follow the best evidence. But some people would just say, like, well, testimony, there's no amount of testimony that could ever establish a miracle claim. That, like, Jesus himself would almost have to do X, Y, and Z in front of me in order for me to believe. And so I just want to know,
why are you telling me, dude? I mean,
what's that?
I mean, I thought we were frenemies. Now you want to be full on enemies? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not a Matt Dillahunty type where I'd say, well, first off, with his whole, claims are not evidence, I don't accept that. There is testimonial evidence, absolutely. It is hard for me to say what I would accept from antiquity, just because the cultural zeitgeist of antiquity was just mired in superstition and gullibility. And I'm not saying that people back then were stupid. I'm not, I don't want to be accused of what C.S. Lewis called chronological snobbery.
Sure.
But to me, the culture of the time was just saturated in again, superstition and gullibility. So it's just hard for me to find testimony from then that would be adequate to justify a miracle. Now, your question was more, is there any testimony even today, right? Are you also including like what testimony today might convince me?
I mean, it could. I mean, we could include that. I'm just wondering if testimony at all could ever like persuade you of a miracle claim.
Yeah,
not something you own.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, not like something you've personally witnessed, but just testimony of some sort of variety.
Right. I definitely wouldn't rule it out. I'm not a naturalist. I kind of brought this up at the beginning of the call, which I'm sure you weren't tuned in at that point, but I'm not a metaphysical naturalist. I'm very much metaphysically neutral, and that's part of the reason why I call myself an agnostic.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's possible. I've had friends and family members tell me stories of things, and I don't dismiss it right off the bat. I've even had an atheist that I used to work with tell me a story of something that he experienced that he could not explain, that I could not explain. And I wasn't going to just dismiss it out of hand. But a lot of times I just remain agnostic. I don't know what to do with it. Like one miracle account that I really don't know what to do with are a lot of Virgin Mary appearances, like the miracle at Zaytun. When you have thousands of people that see something like that, like, I don't know what to do with that. I don't dismiss it. I don't dismiss it out of hand. But I've never seen a good naturalistic explanation for it. And again, I'm not a naturalist, but in ordinary circumstances, I will accept, a normal, plausible naturalistic accounts. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of accounts throughout history like that, where I'm just like, I don't know what to make of this. The evidence isn't good enough for me to say I believe that this happened, but I definitely believe something out of the ordinary happened. So yeah, I don't think my bar is as high as a Humean or someone like a Matt Dillahunty. So I don't know, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. That's fair. I appreciate that. Yeah, I looked at Zaytun too. I don't necessarily know what to do with it. I'm not like as persuaded by it as like others at all.
Yeah,
I'm Protestant, but I don't know what to do with some of the not so much the apparition stories from Lourdes, but the healings, because the healings will and I know Derek has a mutual friend and I with Caleb Jackson. A lot of those healings that are associated with the apparition do go through like a really thorough process of vetting in terms of like miraculous healings and different things like that, that don't necessarily sit comfortable. So no, that's good to know. So well, we don't have to belabor that then, because you're open to evidence if it's there. Sometimes with the Humean, it's just like no amount of testimony is ever going to establish a miracle. So it's kind of like, well, then until we get past an impasse like that, it's kind of like I find the whole resurrection discussion to be like, why are we having this discussion if like different people have different standards of evidence?
That's why I'm staying silent too, because I do have a higher bar. I feel I am very skeptical of testimonial evidence as persuasive of miraculous things. I'm not going to just hand wave as if you're not having an experience, but I would probably gravitate to try and explain it through natural means, because that's just what my go-to would be. It's more likely to me that would be the case versus the miracle. But I don't want you having a conversation with two different people who have two different kind of thresholds on how they might approach this material. And plus, I've talked before. So I do agree with you that, we wouldn't even be able to get off like that initial step, though I'm not saying that testimony doesn't count as evidence.
Sure.
I saw the Alex O'Connor kind of the back and forth thing.
The Joe Schmidt. That was a really good back and forth, actually.
It was very educational for everyone, including atheists who often hear that's not evidence. It's like, hold on. Don't take the word evidence as proof or something. It's like they kind of, I think, synonymously imagine when you use the word evidence, that somehow makes something like the proof of, right? Like you could say, hey, I have evidence that Muhammad split the moon. You could find out that evidence doesn't work at the end of the day. You can go, nice try. It's legendary. It's whatever. Like you can grant those things, but that gets into like, I think a lot of people have heard that recycled. So, all right, enough of my conversation. Eric, we can always do this too in the future with you and me, whatever. You know what I mean? We're like,
oh yeah, sure. No, you're good.
Steven should continue because I'm actually enjoying this.
Yeah, no worries.
Eric, if you want to pick up from where you left off, and
yeah, that's fine. And so, and do keep in mind, I'm literally, this is my, I work part-time besides doing the YouTube. So I'm literally sitting at a school, just waiting for kids to get out. I work with like before and after school kids with a program with my church. So obviously you guys are rapping anyway, so I don't think we'll take all that time. But if you hear a bunch of kids come on, it's like, okay, that's my cue to go. Yeah, no worries. It's gonna be like 20 minutes probably at least. So
we'll value you while we have you.
Yeah, no worries. So
we're gonna
I guess
and get killed. Did you hear that caller?
What's that? No, I didn't hear any callers. Okay. I just kind of saw you were live, and I was like, "Resurrection, that's cool."
Later, you'll see. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So you said you hold to Fodor's model, and you think that it could cover a maximalist case. I think in that case, you would have to say that the writers necessarily weren't exaggerating. It was the witnesses who were mistaken. I mean, is that my understanding, or at least they were?
I mean, there might be some exaggeration. I mean, I think even with a faithful historian, there's going to be some exaggeration. But yeah, I don't think I can make a case for legendary development that well with the maximalist case. So I think I would have to lean a little bit more on different types of cognitive and social and psychological biases and blind spots for that.
Would you rather press it on what the Gospels actually are, or do you want to just stick with the model and just say that I can account for it with maximal data? It's like, because I think we're probably going to disagree mostly on what the Gospels actually are. But on the other hand, if you want to say I can grant that for you, and I'll still say that the resurrection isn't the best explanation, Fodor's got a better model that better accounts for the data, then we could do that too. It just depends on which direction you would prefer to go.
I think we can go the latter option.
The Fodor option? Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I guess, how does that work? I mean, explain that, because from the details of the testimony, just granting the Gospels as eyewitness accounts, you have multisensory appearances that are group appearances. They're extended across time. They come by prior appointment, by just interruption. There's different times of day. There's soft-headed people, like, soft-hearted people like, say, Mary Magdalene. You have people that are more hard-hearted, and like Thomas or something like that. Sure. You have them extended across a period of 40 days, at least according to Acts, although we don't get all the details what all those appearances were exactly like. And so you'd have to kind of, I feel like the burden would be to show, like, psychologically how that is plausible, and then the willingness, I would say, and you could push back on any of this point. Sure. I'm thinking out loud, trying to play devil's advocate in my own head as I'm talking about, like, them with being this willingness to suffer. If it's like this, like, they weren't really that great, but then they kind of exaggerated, and yet they're still willing to suffer. And so, like, how does that work psychologically from you? I feel like that would be kind of like a harder burden. This is why I feel like the maximalist case doesn't really stumble across any of these arguments. The argument just goes, what are the Gospels? But anyways, I'm kind of rambling, so go ahead.
No, you're fine. So I think a couple things. First off, one of the things I've mentioned throughout this live stream is, again, the individuals of that time were extremely superstitious, extremely gullible. And so I don't think that they had such a high burden to believe that they experienced the things that they believed. And again, I could cite, just to give an example, I have here a quote from Tacitus because I think it's a really important quote. And so Tacitus once relayed that. He said, quote, that everything gets exaggerated is typical for any story. All the greatest events are obscure. While some people accept what they hear as beyond doubt, others twist the truth into its opposite, and both errors grow over subsequent generations. And Tacitus is kind of relaying what I'm saying, which is that people just believed things without doing so much detective work. And so I would argue that the disciples were likely like that. And what can usually happen in religious settings like this is, let's say you have Peter and Mary that had a hallucination of, again, a personal hallucination, not a shared intersubjective hallucination. And then they come to the group and they tell people what they've seen. And if there was an empty tomb there, you have enough of a catalyst for, again, reconstructive recall, memory conformity, memory distortion, collective memory to take place over many years. And I think that we see signs of this in the Gospels because the Gospels, I think, are the most contradictory when it comes to the resurrection. They can't seem to agree on where Jesus first appeared to a group. You have a lot of obscurity and ambiguity over people not recognizing Jesus, which is really strange. It's really, really strange that some people claim to not have recognized Jesus as they were talking to him face to face. And again, you have some people doubting. Why were some people doubting? Again, that just opens up the door for me to this obscurity and this ambiguity. And so, did the disciples fall subject to social and emotional contagion just from two people having a hallucination? It's definitely possible. I think that we've seen religious movements get started with things like that. And so we have evidence that this happens, that these types of things happens. I don't know that I can give you exactly a concrete story of like, let's say how the doubting Thomas story started. But again, I think that we know enough about sociology and psychology to understand how these things can happen. And I think even if we look, and again, you said you were rambling, and so now I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but
no, you're good.
We can even look at the Gospels themselves and look at something like the fact that some Jews came to believe that John the Baptist had resurrected. Herod even says that he believes that Jesus was John the Baptist raised from the dead. And so here we see that, again, the people of this time period, they didn't need amazing evidence to believe that someone had raised from the dead. They could just hear stories about Jesus and say, oh, that sounds to me like John the Baptist. I think John the Baptist has come back from the dead, even though you could go, John the Baptist's head was cut off, right? It just shows the cultural zeitgeist of the time, that it didn't take a whole lot for people to come believe these extraordinary claims.
Well, I mean, I think the ancients had a pretty good understanding that dead people would tend to stay dead. And so, I mean, you mentioned John the Baptist. The only thing that we have from that was the one video of yours that I saw. I thought that was interesting. And I was like, ooh, I'll hit subscribe and come back to this guy.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
But what raised some questions for me in that particular video was like the only place that we see that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misremembering something, is we just have Herod repeating something that he had heard, and that something that he had believed. Herod was already, we know, probably if he's anything like his daddy, a pretty paranoid person about his power. He probably felt grief and guilt over being basically responsible for getting this man killed. We know from Josephus that he feared that like he could cause an uprising against him, and that basically his marriage to his wife created a border war between him and I think it was Aretas or somebody. I could be mistaken. I don't have my notes in front of me, and so
you would know probably better than me. So
yeah, so it's just like we only have like this kind of one kind of offhanded remark of somebody who's paranoid, and I don't really find that as like strong evidence. I mean, we see that like, it seems like the Gospels even portray that as kind of a strange thing. Like they're just like, yeah, he believed this weird thing. And so hopefully I'm making sense, but I guess I just don't really see that as like strong evidence necessarily of credulousness and like, well, there could have been this John the Baptist movement too. We don't have the kind of veridical reportedly appearances of John. We certainly don't have a movement of people that were willing to suffer on behalf of John appearances after his death or anything else like that. It just seems like there was still somewhat of a movement with John the Baptist. We see that even in Acts, people as far as Ephesus still, being familiar with them and following his teachings, but it's not, the same. It's not on the basis of any sort of miracle. They just believe that he was a prophet. And so I don't know if I find that particularly like strong. Yeah. And so, I mean, I understand what you're saying. People could have been more credulous or different things like that in ancient times. But on the other hand, like they're familiar with death. They're more familiar with death than we are, in the sense that like there's a higher mortality rate, younger mortality rate. Like they don't just pay somebody to bury their dead. They usually do it themselves, and on it goes. And so I think that they still had a pretty good understanding that dead people stay dead. And I think that's why that explains some of the earlier like doubts and different things that you even mentioned in the Gospels, is that like, this is kind of a hard thing for them to believe. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I think you brought up some good points. So if I can address them. So first off, it wasn't just Herod. There's a couple different passages, actually. There is one passage where they talk about Herod specifically believing that Jesus was John the Baptist, but then there's another passage, and I don't know the, you guys that are watching can look it up. But yeah, where Jesus says, who do people say that I am? He says, who do the people say that I am, right? And what's interesting is they name off some Jewish prophets like Elijah, and then they say, and some say that you're John the Baptist. So it wasn't just Herod. Apparently there were whole droves of people that believed this. And the other thing, and so what this demonstrates is that you could have large groups of people, and again, I don't know how large, but more than one person seemingly in antiquity that could come to believe on what seems to be very poor evidence. They could come to believe that someone was raised from the dead on not very good evidence. And the other thing that I'll say, and then I'll let you answer, is what I found interesting was you're giving reasons for why Herod, you're almost kind of psychoanalyzing Herod for what it would take for him to come to believe that John the Baptist had resurrected from the dead. And that's basically the same thing that I'm positing for the disciples, right? Sure. We can posit what are known psychological and sociological commonalities that might apply to someone in the disciples' position, just like you were doing with Herod, right? Like you're like, we can account for why Herod believed Jesus or John the Baptist was raised from the dead, because look at his psychological state, and look at these, he was feeling grief over, over the things that you mentioned. So, I think that's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that we can't psychoanalyze to a certain extent, or at least try to from our armchair a little bit. People that have been dead for 2,000 years. So I'm not saying that like you can't do that or that's not fair. I'm just saying in the case of like the John the Baptist, we just don't have any details of any of the testimony whatsoever. Right. We know that they could have believed that somebody was resurrected from the dead. And I don't use the N.T. Wright, William Lane Craig argument that like this was just so unprecedented and so unexpected. I do think that they tend to oversell that evidence a little bit. For the very reason that you bring up, like 100%. I don't think that that's like a very strong argument. What I would go back to is like the details of the actual testimony, and like what we have for John the Baptist is like weaker than what we would even have for like, say, a minimal facts case for the resurrection. We just have some kind of early belief that's stated by Herod and maybe some of John's followers who are completely unnamed. We don't know anything about the details of like what they would have experienced or led them to that particular belief, other than they see Jesus performing apparent miracles, and they're not sure how to explain that. And that could be explained also as just them thinking like, well, he has the anointing of John the Baptist or the anointing of Jeremiah. I mean, they did kind of see, I think there is an argument that you could make that that's how they may have saw these things. It's not decisive either way. And so like, it's a parallel. I just don't find it to be like a particularly strong parallel other than to show, well, yeah, ancient people could believe weird things. Well, that's something that we know. Modern people can believe weird things today. I mean, so I just don't think it gets us down the road very far.
Yeah, and I wouldn't base my entire argument against the resurrection. Right? The RHBS model is not, the B doesn't stand for Baptist. And any, and it's just a slight parallel, as you said. Like, you can't push it too far, and I'm definitely not. And what you said is correct. Like, the gospel accounts give us way more insight into what led to the belief, or what could have possibly led to the belief in Jesus's resurrection, that we don't have for John the Baptist. So I agree with you there. We can only push the analogy so far, but I do think that it adds to our background knowledge significantly, because it demonstrates to us that it was extremely plausible for first century Jews to believe that someone had resurrected from the dead based on not the best evidence, especially because, again, John the Baptist did not have an empty tomb like Jesus, as far as we know, so it's just, I think it adds to our background knowledge, and it's part of a cumulative case.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would agree that the prior can you still hear me? My headphones. Okay. All right. Yeah, every now and then they're acting like they're turning off, but they're not. I don't know what the deal is. Anyways, I think that the prior probability of any kind of miracle, initially is going to be low, because people are often mistaken because of credulousness, because people tend to lie about these things or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so what we have to do is we just have to go to specifics to the details of the testimony. And so what I would probably go back to is if I just use, say, John's gospel or Luke's gospel, I would say those kind of details that are in there, we could throw out the other two gospels just for like the sake of argument. Not that I would, but like the kind of details that are in there are the kind of details, at least some, would be very difficult to be mistaken about. And I'm going to say that Luke was actually a traveling companion of Paul, that he actually was in Jerusalem in Acts chapter 21, where it says all the elders were present, which I would presume is referring to apostles. Which would also include James, is mentioned by name there. And then, of course, you have John, who specifically claims to be an eyewitness, apparently would have been present at the whole appearance to, say, somebody like Thomas, or the seashore appearance. I know Derek's mind is going, no, none of that happened.
Well, I'm not going to rudely interrupt.
So that's legendary. The 153 is symbolic. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, and so like I would say, like you'd have to sit that. That's like a really weird social contagion. If John is a witness, then he has to be embellishing like those details at that point. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like I feel like if you put John in there, and even Luke, because of just who Paul was associated with, it's like some of those details are difficult. Yeah, sure. There's the road to Emmaus. Cleopas, they don't recognize him at first. I don't know. Is Jesus doing some sort of like weird lesson at that point? Like what's going on? But then there's other appearances where it's less likely to be mistaken. If he's talking to Peter, and has access to Peter and all this other stuff, then they're able to pick up this testimony and report it as best they know it.
Right. No, and I appreciate your point of view here. I think I think that sociology and psychology can easily rise to the challenge of things like this. Like, I don't know how many cases you've studied of things like mass hysteria or memory distortion. Like, take a case, and take a case like the Salem witch trials, right? Where you have people coming to believe that they've witnessed witches doing certain things. Now, you did have people in the Salem witch trials. Some of them were lying. Some of them were what's the word I'm looking for? They were like legendizing what they saw and exaggerating. But you have some people who genuinely believe that they observed witches doing certain things, and even in groups. And so we know from social psychology that these types of things can happen, where people's memories are implanted and people's memories are distorted, even in groups. And sometimes it can start with just a small spark. And again, it could have started with as small of a spark as Peter having some type of hallucination, and let's say Mary, and then there being an empty tomb, and that being more than enough of a catalyst for groupthink and collective memory to start kind of taking on a life of its own. And again, you're talking about the disciples who, after Jesus was crucified, they were likely hysterical. They were likely sleep deprived. They were incredibly grief stricken, right? A lot of the stuff that you might have attributed to King Herod. And so we've seen that in these types of religious movements, these types of things can happen where memories are distorted, collective memories are formed, where people start to say, oh no, I did see Jesus. No, I did. Yeah. And we ate with him. And that might seem silly. Like, why would somebody come to believe that if they didn't actually, like, if they weren't actually there? But again, we've seen cases where that has happened throughout history. We've seen documented cases with different religions, with different phenomena, again, like Salem witch trials, UFOs. I mean, there's a lot of documentation on what people experience when they think they've been abducted by aliens and by UFOs. And again, you have groups of people, and they've also done studies regarding the whether or not people that are abducted by aliens, whether or not they are they have a higher incidence of mental illness, and they don't. A lot of times these are very rational people that believe that they've experienced some type of alien abduction. And again, a lot of times it comes down to social and psychological issues and memory distortion and groupthink and emotional contagion. And so I think that social and psychology, or I think that sociology and psychology can rise to the challenge. And again, and this is with me granting you a maximal facts case, right? I actually don't think the maximal facts, I don't think what you take to be facts in the maximal sense, I don't take those to be facts, but I do think that even granting you that, again, that the sciences of sociology and psychology can raise to the threshold that we're looking for here. I think what I'll let you do is because I'm going to have to run soon, and I know you're probably going to have to run soon, so I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah,
yeah.
You know this.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I appreciate you letting me come up, Derek, and get a talk. Good to meet you, man. Yeah, I would say I just have a hard time seeing it, because I mean, if John is a witness, we'll just stick with John for this last kind of whatever rebuttal or whatever. Sure. If John is a witness, this is 8 days later. He appears to a group of people. He invites people to touch him. I just don't think, and like John is there. I don't know. Like when I look at like eyewitness testimony being something that's unreliable, even listening to like lawyers and courtroom kind of scenarios, different things like that, they talk about eyewitness testimony being unreliable in situations where there's like it's a brief, confusing episode, where there's danger present, where there's cross-racial identification. None of those things are present at all in this particular scenario. So John would really have to be kind of pulling something out of his behind here, and not being completely honest. And I just, based on the way that he goes about sharing his gospel in other ways, and I know Derek's mind is just exploding right now, like, no, that's true. But I think that he shows himself to be very honest. I think he shows himself to be very reliable. I think that he shows himself to be close up to the facts. I don't think that he's like 1 minute like feeling like I can just completely change the whole story up because that would be neat if I told it that way. And so I don't think that the psychological model can really account for those appearances, especially at the back end of John or like even with Peter. Eating breakfast on a seashore with your former dead rabbi. I just don't think that works very well. And so if I just were putting myself in your guys' shoes, I would just attack me on the Gospels and be like, no, that's not what they are. I don't think RHBS is going to do it, at least for the Gospel of John and probably Luke too. I would probably just say, no, those are just embellished statements by authors who were written long after the events that were anonymous. They weren't witnesses, and it's just a mix of fact and fiction. And I think that would probably be a stronger approach than Fedora's approach. I don't think it works either, but that would be a whole other stream, maybe in a future time or something. I hope you guys continue to do these, and
For sure.
because I've been trying to do the call-ins myself, and I know it can be weird at times and frustrating, and then also fun. And so it was a good chat, and I'm glad we got to.
Yeah, it was a great chat. It was
have
nice,
this.
like I said, it was nice to meet you. I appreciate the discussion. I've been watching your channel for a while, so I think at one point I was going to call into Michael and Thans when you were there. So maybe at some point in the future I'll do that as well. But it was nice to meet you. Thanks for the discussion, and I look forward to correspondence in the future.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yep.
And
All right.
when we're live and you see us like challenging Christians or whatever, man, feel free to jump in. And I wanted to allow you and Stephen to first exchange. You and me, if we've what would you say? We've studied
sparred.
each other, we've sparred before. But I have much to say too. But again, it's like I'm respecting my guests here who's joining me, and I really appreciate you coming on too, and of course giving us a lot more norm. We had a few callers. If you go back, watch this back, Eric.
They were interesting.
Completely, like one of them was like just not brushed up on apologetics, but one was like out there. Older man, you'll see. Just skip it. It was bad. It was bad.
I get the Muslims with the smoke detectors chirping. So, and then they have no idea what they're talking about, and I can barely understand them. So I totally can sympathize. So, all right, guys. Well, appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Drive safe.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.
So Derek, I don't want to just run after that, but I got to go pick up my girls from school in like a minute or two. So I'm sorry.
Really? Want to rush through here?
Yeah, I was.
Because I don't want to like leave anybody hanging.
I know you want to like unpack that, and I do too.
Get it.
But yeah, I gotta run.
Go ahead, just go. I don't want you losing your mind. I'll handle this.
Yeah,
seriously.
No, I appreciate it, man. I had a good time. The last one was the best. Obviously, I testify as a good dude. So thanks, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I look forward to doing this again in the future. And thanks, man.
Absolutely. I'll handle the super chats. And again, let's do this again.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Everybody go subscribe. And thank you so much, Stephen. Have a good one.
All right, man. See ya.
All right. Bye. All right. So much to unpack there, but maybe we'll just have Eric come back. And again, we're starting from completely different positions on how to approach the textual material. And that does determine, and I think Eric would agree with me, that would absolutely determine how you're going to assess what you're reading. So it's not even just like when they were written, but what are the Gospels? Roman, Greco-Roman biography. Usually that gets brought up, and usually people on the internet have no clue what that entails. And when you go read Plutarch, when you go read actual people who write biographies, you'll find out of historical people, they are writing a lot of legend into the lives of the people that they're writing about. And so there's not like a one standard or bios must follow all of these exact things like Xerox copy. And they did this for fictional people as well, which we brought up before, which Homer's an example. They wrote the lives of, I can't remember, there's a couple different ones Plutarch wrote about of people who didn't even exist. So it's just how we're approaching this material. And again, I think if you mix both the cognitive sciences and whatnot and the legendary fictive nature of ancient literary cultic materials, you have a great combination that I think makes really good sense as to what goes on. That's not even factoring in the apocalyptic expectations of the soon end that they were hoping for. And of course, the fervor that comes with that. And when it doesn't happen, then you have cognitive dissonance, getting into the social psychological. Anyway, Valena says, and thank you, Valena, for the super chat. Repeating my point, Bible is historical and mythological, both. The main thing, it's a strong moral compass. Well, it depends on what you're reading. If you're reading something in maybe like a wisdom saying or something, sure. If you're reading on owning individuals, there's precedence for some ugly things you can find in the Bible. Okay. This is a big issue. People use the Bible for what they want, and good people use the Bible for good things. And people who are clearly looking to find justifiable reasons to do bad will find ancient, and yes, the texts do display bad things, right? So you get this with every ancient document. I mean, you'd have to just judge the ancient world overall because that's just how the ancient world was. Pretty cruel when you go back. So I would just want to say it's a strong compass, moral compass for people who are going in whatever direction. People use ancient literature, and sometimes ancient literature can feed hate, can feed bad ideas. And people who believe the Bible so strongly, let's say, might have an interpretation of it that leads them to even deeper, darker, bad ideas. And then they have to double down because the Bible says so in their minds. More progressive thinkers will reinterpret the Bible to fit their moral compass today. And so they'll just die on the hill of that's not what the Bible means, or that's your interpretation. But my interpretation is it's nice and pretty and loving and all that good stuff. So this gets into another thing that's kind of subjective, is how we interpret material. And that's why I do like historical critical scholarship, because it does try to use rigorous methodology to understand what the ancient text probably meant in its original context. I really enjoy it for that. William Arons, good to see you here. It's been a minute. Thank you for that $20 super chat. I really appreciate it. My belief comes from belonging to a church that believes that it has been a reestablishment of the original Christian church, a hierarchy with an apostolic office at the top. My religion is tied to these human intermediaries. So I guess that would just be kind of like believing in a church traditional, apostolic continuity. I trust the authority and the community of the church in which I'm involved in. And, a lot of people do. And then some people don't, right? Some people end up going, they hurt me, they harm me. Or they go down a path of realizing that maybe they're not convinced of the arguments or whatever. The way I tend to look at it is this. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, what not to believe. I respect everybody's decision to hold to faith, however that works, as long as it's helping and it's not harming you or others. That's really what I would say at the end of the day. Is it seems to be working for you, William. Keep at it. And the funny thing is William, you've been watching me. You know how critical I can get. You've been watching what I do on this channel. And yes, I also jab my own personal positions on things but I do try to bring scholarship on and allow you to hear what I have to say, but also to make up your own mind based on the scholars we do interview. And I do appreciate you giving me your thoughts. I don't think I need to share what mine are. You already know I'm very skeptical, and I don't see how that would be overcome other than a profound, unbelievable, miraculous situation in my life. Okay. Keeping it real. At least I have a threshold that you can meet and God could potentially meet if God existed according to these texts. William Arns is back again with another 10. Thank you. What I realize is that the new apostolic church, similar to other Christian movements that began in the 19th century, could be seen as a template for how the early church formed from a core of beliefs. Interesting. So if I understand, if you're still in the chat here, are you suggesting that we should be looking at the new apostolic church to get an understanding of how maybe the earliest church did form and evolve its ideas? I don't know much about the new apostolic church, but I'm kind of curious if that's what you're trying to get at. So if that's the case, maybe I'm misunderstanding your prior super chat. I'm not sure. But help me, chat. Is that what William's saying? That pretty much you could look at the new apostolic church. He thinks that might reflect a better understanding of how we can understand the origins of the church we find, or he believes the church we find in the New Testament. Waiting to see if anyone in the chat has a better understanding. I think I'm reading the super chat correctly. Unless everybody wants to debate each other. Or my delay, it takes a minute for people in the chat to see it. Which may be the case. Nobody yet. Nobody yet. I'm looking to you, chat. I'm looking to you. Greco-Roman biographies in antiquity covered a subject's entire life, not just the last 3 years, as the Gospels do. That's why Dennis MacDonald thinks the Gospel of Matthew is a bios. He thinks specifically with bios. I've got a book coming, hopefully, if Brill sends it, that actually questions the Gospels as folklore rather than bios. And these are like upper echelon critical scholars and stuff. It's not like absolute. And then there's also scholars like Steve Mason who argue that genre categories, these are all anachronistic, that we try to place these boundaries and categories onto text in the ancient world. And these are all modern problems. They're not ancient ones. Interesting. Okay. Let me see. You guys, I'm looking to see. I can't understand the question Billy said. The quick and easy answer. Derek, say it again. Super chat's here on the screen. There was no early church that's post 70 shit was about to hit the fan. No time for church hierarchy. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what William's point was in this super chat is all. That was my main concern, was trying to understand that. Okay. I guess we're gonna move to the next William super chat. William, again, thank you so much. He says that later became a church established around a strong core of leaders whose apostolic doctrine codified those beliefs and built up an institution. So I think with that combined, all three super chats, I think William is trying to make an argument that you just need to look to another modern Christian movement, and you get a kind of another heuristic example, even though it's separated by 1900 years, on what he imagines the early church's development, its evolution, the hierarchy, and all of that takes place. You could just look at other movements, even within Christian history, to kind of look at it and go, hey, look at how they developed. I don't know. I haven't looked closely. Like, do they have visionary experiences? Are they going through like claiming all sorts of miraculous stuff? Like what's group appearances and visions and stuff? Like what's going on with the new apostolic church? I'm curious to know if that has any overlap. Thank you so much, Williams, for that super chat. Real quick, while I'm here in the chat, I think we ran out of supers. Billy says, Derek, did you ever cover the Cathars yet? We've talked about them in passing on the channel. I've never devoted a video to it. MythVision's all about this, right? So we will have to cover all of this stuff at some point. It's a lot to do. As we grow, hopefully, and things start kicking off and doing even better, I could potentially even hire additional editors, and then eventually we could start actually producing even more content, covering materials that, I'm not able to cover right now with the limited resources. But I do at some point plan on covering all sorts of stuff. I'd like to get into the Crusades and understand that historically. I'd like to get into all sorts of stuff. You guys know I dabble with Islam. I do all sorts of stuff that, not every channel does that. And I try not to be just polemical. I am polemical, don't get me wrong, but I don't try to be just polemical. My goal is to try and educate you and give you what scholars say too, right? Oh, thank you for, again, the 80th millionth person. I'd be more than happy to. Wes Huff, I'd love nothing but the opportunity to actually have a conversation, debate, whatever he's comfortable with. I've reached out initially. There was no interest. He's booked till 2027. He's booked till, he's too busy. And until I get 5 million subscribers on my channel, and maybe I'll give him a softball pitch interview, he might decide at that point he would join me for an interview. Unlikely, just being honest with you. We have tried. He doesn't want to do it. So I know. I got a video coming, another one. Another 2 videos, actually. I didn't realize he was on these other bigger platforms. I've got one where I'm going to be critiquing Wes Huff's position with Michael Knowles, some like religious Catholic / political commentator, Michael Knowles. I've got a video coming on that. I've got a video with him. It's a longer one where I'm actually picking him apart from Sean Ryan show. The ex-Navy or the retired Navy SEAL, Sean Ryan. And that one's going to be a long just dismantling of so much that he said on the episode. And if you're not going to invite people who have a critical scholarly perception on these big shows, the best we can do is try to attempt to make some noise using our platforms and respond to those episodes. So I've got some stuff coming. Yeah, I wish I'd love it. I'd love to have a debate with him. I would. I've got some debates coming up. I'm going to start doing more and doing these call-ins. I want to do some formal stuff. I'd love that, but we'll see. I mean, I think people were trying to put together a debate with him and Alex O'Connor or something. I don't know if that was even off the ground or if that was just hearsay. But yeah, you never know. You never know. We'll see. Great debate. Did you see the guy today that was losing his mind about the oh my gosh, about the Omni? You're going to get, he said, very soon someone's going to approach you with electronic money online. They're going to want to tattoo you or mark you with an Omni code. You're going to get $32,500 and I don't know, something dollars. And then he said, I'm going to come meet you in person and you're going to fall at my feet and die. And so I can't even, like, I'm going to have to clip that. Like, the world needs to see what in the world that was about, right? Like, holy smokes. Are you back, Steven?
I'm back, man.
Holy smokes. So did you handle it or something?
Dude, I handled business. Just because they're down the street, man. They're down the street.
Okay.
I mean, I probably can't stay on too much longer because
No,
I can't neglect my children, you know. But
no.
But I didn't want to just leave you in the dust here, man.
Hey, look, there are bigger priorities, and your family is, you know, the biggest priority of your life, and
Of course,
I respect it. No, I respect it. If you didn't do that, I'd be like,
If I was just like, somebody else will pick them up. They're all right.
yeah, like my kids can walk home. It's only 8 miles, you know.
Yeah,
like,
it's not a big deal.
they hitchhike with the neighbors all the time. They find rides. Random people bring
That's
them to
right.
the house. It's all good.
That's right.
But no, yeah. Did you want to unravel? I guess it's important because I was hoping after that discussion, I didn't want to intrude, number one, because that was
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, because I can get excited and involved, as you saw earlier. But I also feel like you maybe want to unpack some of your thoughts about it, and then, you know, again, shamelessly plug you, and maybe, you know, we'll close out.
Shamelessly plugging me sounds a little bit sketchy there.
Not that kind of plugging.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
You got plug and peg completely.
I think it's shamefully plugging. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, Emma, it was great to talk to him. I've never talked. What's his name? Because I just know him as Testify.
Eric.
Okay. Yeah.
Eric,
he's a good dude. Like, he's always, any of the times I've seen him in his, you know, debates or just on his channel, he's an amicable dude. So I really appreciate that. I mean, here's the thing, like, that's one of the reasons I really like James Fodor's RHBS model, because I think that you can grant them all the facts you want. Like, I granted him his maximal facts case. And for those of you that don't know, the maximal facts case is basically you're assuming that the Gospels were written by eyewitnesses and that their testimony is generally reliable. Not necessarily true. You're not assuming that it's true, because if you assume that it's true, then yeah, Jesus resurrected. But you're assuming that it's reliable. So you're assuming that everything John relates is reliable to what he believed, and that everything, you know, all the other authors relayed are reliable to what they believe. And so, yeah, I mean, I just tried to demonstrate that even granting all that, it's still not plausible to accept a resurrection. And I mean, yeah, so when I was trying to pitch all the sociology and psychology stuff, at the end, he just said, I don't really see that as that plausible, but I don't see how. Once we know that those things happen, again, it becomes part of our background knowledge. And that's what's important when you're talking about the resurrection. You're talking about background knowledge, and background knowledge is what tells you whether or not a new proposition or whether or not a new hypothesis is plausible or not. So it's like, look, do we know that memory contagion happens? Yes. Do we know that social contagion happens? Yes. Do we know that groupthink and mass hysteria happen and that they can lead to religious, or not even religious, but just extraordinary beliefs like this? Yes. Do we have examples in the Gospels of people coming to believe somebody rose from the dead based on bad evidence? Yes. Like, so that all is part of our background knowledge. And that to me makes a resurrection hypothesis like completely implausible. So, I mean, yeah, that's my main main answer to what he kind of answered at the end there. I don't know. What do you think there?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, even if I guess I was a supernaturalist at one point. Okay. My reasons for believing were all sorts of psychological factors that I now look back and realize like deeply entrenched. There was no amount of data you could have given me at the time to honestly push me over the edge. There was some internal things I think that allowed me to give myself permission to go beyond my comfort zones and be willing to actually digest things that may be contrary to the dogma I once held. And there's got to be psychological reasons, which we get into the whole psychoanalyzing stuff, right? And me and him have had this problem. He's like, you keep psychoanalyzing me, and but I can only speak from my own experience, and I've heard countless other deconversion stories and private conversations with people who share this same kind of thing. And it's hard to see your own psychological, boundaries and limitations on these things. But I would say this again, if you have natural explanations side by side by something that sounds, I want to use the word too good to be true, something that is not normal. Okay. You don't see this on a regular basis, but you can explain it. And you have no way to prove like 100%, but you had two hypotheses next to each other. And one is a natural one that can explain the data. And it's, by the way, it's not that it can only, it literally is explainable in several other circumstances, in religious settings, in all sorts of stuff like that. And it's worked and it's scientific. And you have like ways to really go, this works all the time. Then you go to the other side and you have the claim, which is based on testimony. We'll just say written testimony. If I grant that word testimony is loaded, I don't even want to go too far into that because I do think this is literature and it's hard to know, is there a memory or not? Okay? When you get over here into the claim, and you also then have to factor in, you're talking about other literature that has claims that people die and are seen after they're dead and rise again, et cetera, et cetera. And there are these ideas out there. Okay. Couple that with the fact that you have what you just brought up, the natural explanation. It seems to me a no-brainer, the most probable. Unless you yourself had the empirical evidence of it somehow actually revealed to you. And I'm not talking about from an ancient text. I'm talking like the miracle happens to you. Okay. Then I don't see any real reason in an intellectual setting to suppose I have the facts historically. If you want to go, I have faith, cool, bring the faith card out, we get it. But like, it seems like a no-brainer. The more plausible explanation will become the natural one when we have a means by which explains that. That's just that's where I would go. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me, but they might, you're looking for like any and every piece of evidence that will pick this apart. And that's why Socrates was called the gadfly. Because he stung and annoyed like the gadfly does the horses, and if you're out on a farm, they call them horse flies. They sting you, and they are huge and they bother you because he always annoyed with pestering skeptical questions that led deeper in questioning. And the more data you start getting, the less plausible, the less believable, the less convincing. I think it is, unless you yourself actually have that experience somehow. I just don't see any reason to intellectually leap to it personally.
And one of the questions he asked me, which was a good question, right, was like, what is testimony ever enough for me to believe in a miracle? And I told him, I don't think from antiquity, because of what you just said. And especially like, again, like the people from antiquity were just extremely gullible, extremely superstitious. And again, that's not to say that people nowadays aren't, but they're nowhere near what they were back then. And so, I might be more inclined to accept testimony today, but I've never encountered testimony that I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to believe that. I mentioned, like, I've encountered testimony that I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know. I'm not going to be super skeptical and say, oh no, there's no way that happened. You've talked to Dale Allison in person, and he's recounted stuff that he's experienced. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not going to say, well, Dale Allison is a crackpot Christian. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, no, dude, he's a very rational person. And he's experienced things that I'm like, look, I wasn't there, but I don't know what to do with your testimony. I'm not going to say I don't believe you or that you were being irrational. I just don't know what to do with it. don't know what to make of it. And I think, again, that's a lot of times why I call myself agnostic, because I just think there's things you need to be agnostic about, you know?
Yeah. I'm more skeptical. I think, at least it seems I'm a little like, I would be in the category that's more skeptical than what you're saying.
And that's fine.
And I'm not so skeptical that evidence couldn't overturn it. The problem is, if we live in a world where that's how God operates, is that then I'm screwed. I am screwed. And it's sad, because I know that if they go, well, that's not how God operates. It's like, I've read your books. Okay. He does operate beyond that. In fact, he's intervened in history. He's shown, so that can't happen. You're telling me that he won't do that? Well, that's a ridiculous claim that you would expect God to do that. And it's like, I don't think it is ridiculous. I think I
don't think it's ridiculous at all.
Even taking this kind of maximalist approach, going into Matthew, the appearances on that mountain, some doubted. They're right there in the presence of supposedly the risen Christ. Some doubt what they're seeing, or whatever it is. They don't all agree. They don't all believe. And then, of course, the doubting tradition gets down into Thomas. Thomas says, unless I see and I touch and I feel and I, dude, if he's saying that days or a day later after the death, come on, bro, like 2026. Can we not be like, does the skeptic not have the upper ground in being very cautious? And, that is why I'm very vocal and going, hey, no, I'm not convinced of this. But again, Allison, doesn't believe those experiences are psychological or hallucinogenic or whatever, like they're not, they wouldn't be categorized that. And I hear him. I respect his self-assessment here. And I think that there are very perfectly intelligent, logical, rational people who I don't know really have the brain figured out. I'd go to a brain scientist and I'd go, are there really, really bright, really smart people that just have experiences that we have actually found phenomena of their experiences that they don't even realize? That's how tricky the brain is, and such a powerful tool, that they are having forms of something that might be hallucination or something. And yet they're like brilliant. Everything's perfectly functional. They're like, we are a animal. Okay. And trying to figure that out, like, I don't know how much brain science, I haven't studied that exhaustive either, but you understand where I'm going with this. Like,
well, actually, and philosophy of mind and consciousness is one of the reasons why I personally don't consider myself a naturalist, because that avenue, that's a whole other black box. That's Pandora's box. And I don't know what's in there. And and so that's largely one of the reasons why I take on the title of agnostic. But jumping back to what you said, but when it comes to claims from antiquity, I'm very skeptical of those. I'm much, much more skeptical, again, because of the things that they believe, because the evidence we have of their testimony is not, I don't think it's very strong. I don't know that any testimonial evidence from antiquity would ever be enough for me to believe in a resurrection, let alone Jesus's resurrection. But no, I mean, I had a good discussion with him, man. I really had a good discussion, and I'm glad we ended it on that note. And I'm glad we didn't end it with Wesley, because oh my God, dude, that dude was insane.
Which what the 32,000 guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
that was his name. Was it his name, Wesley? I'm pretty sure.
Remember, I'd have to go back and look. Hold on. He commented in the private chat in the back. Let me see. He said, and by the way, we should have known Wesley Curley II. Okay, everyone remember that name in case you never know. Like, this guy might be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and he might try to do something. That's how delusional he seemed. He wrote in the back, now I realize, right when we brought him on, we didn't pay attention to the private chat in the back. He says,
he said, go ahead. What did he say?
Here is what I want you to do, all caps.
Yeah, and I guess you didn't see that. And I saw it right when you brought him on. So I was like, what is it you want me to do?
Yeah. Weird. Real quick, super chat William Aaron says, one day I want to participate in a discussion. William, obviously we open this up to Christians, and sometimes it might be a show where I'm just talking to myth visionaries who aren't Christians. Sometimes we have call-in shows where we ask people to prove the resurrection. There's going to be all sorts of different shows we'll be doing. And if you find that we're doing one that suits you, that is something that you might fit the bill in terms of what we're doing in this call-in, feel free to do so. I usually pin the link in the top. I believe you're a patron of mine as well, so you can actually message me there as well, and I will be able to get back to you, or email me if you'd like. Pat says, damn, I had to step away for work and missed on a lot.
You missed the best parts, Pat.
It got wild, Pat. Yeah, it's all claims and BS. Where's the evidence? Thank you for the super chat. And then honestly, it's more crazy to believe than not to believe, Pat says. Thank you again, Pat, for the super chat. Well, okay, Steven, look, we got to do this again.
Yeah, man, I had fun.
I had fun too. I'm going to clip a few of these. I think the one guy who went to Satanism and there's some spots we need to probably have there. The other guy though, like that's a must clip. Like everyone has got to see this guy, you know?
Yeah. I might just clip the discussion between me and Testify and put it on my channel if you're cool with that.
Of course.
And I think that was a good discussion. But yeah, dude, hey, that girl was nice. Joanne was cool. But yeah, dude, clip those other ones. That was funny. For sure. And again, you know, I didn't want to intrude because you were using a certain model and it would be like throwing in a wrench to the whole thing. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. You were super. I know there were times you wanted to jump in. I appreciate you letting just me and him have a conversation because again, I've never talked to him before, and he's a nice dude. So yeah, I didn't actually. I mean, sure, there are times I felt like, oh, I could easily contribute to this dialogue, and like, but I also was like, nope, Derek, let them talk, and you know, it's cool because I can always have Eric on in the future if we, you know. Well, and again, I tried to grant him as much as I possibly could. Like there are stuff I would have pushed back on. Of course. You know, like I don't believe anything really from the Gospel of John is very historical, and he was leaning on the Gospel of John very heavily, but I was trying to grant him all that. I was like, even if I grant you the Gospel of John, like I still don't think it's plausible. So that's what I was trying to do. But no, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you letting us if you watch his videos, you'll see what tends to happen, kind of like the first caller, but Eric's far more sophisticated than the first caller. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's not to be derogatory. That's just simply, he's had a lot of years of really sharpening his blade, so to speak. And we all have, you, me, and him. And so what the first caller that came on that was doing the Satanism thing did is he'll say stuff like, hold on, you tell me Julie, he existed. You're telling me he didn't. I'm like, I didn't say that. Yeah, so it's easy to go like extremes, and that's why he kept jumping because it was all extremes and terrible, like not very on track. The point is that he would think, well, Caesar existed, and then in his mind that would convince him to be like, Jesus existed, like, and therefore because Jesus existed, he must have resurrected. I mean, he couldn't possibly existed and not resurrected. Yeah, so, everything that we read about him must be true. So yeah, so the sophisticated approach that happens to be what the mythologist, as he knows I usually call him, I'm pretty sure they have a nickname for me somewhere. It's all cool. It's fun and games. The only reason it works is because you got Lydia Mick Grew, Tim Mick Grew, and then you have literally Jonathan Mick Clatchy. All three are apologists. So we nicknamed those who are in the maximalist camp Mythologists. I didn't know that. I didn't know that's why. Yeah, this is the origin to the whole thing. So it's not a like it's not derogatory. Like, like a really derogatory thing. It's kind of like a joking way of going, oh, the mythologists instead of the maximalists. We're just But what he does, and I think it's clever, but I don't think it gets you there, is he finds verisimilitude. Mm-hmm. So he finds in John, the Gospel of John, how do they know about the pool in Salome pool, right? How do they know about these historical things that are real archaeological things, people, places, etc.? So it gives the furniture of realism in the Gospels. Therefore, when it talks, you'll say that's real. That's a real pool, right? Oh, therefore, when he appears on, does the appearance to Thomas or whatever, it gives him that extra oomph to trust the text, right? And so for me, I look to fiction, and what I did is I did just a short little research on, like, go read Euripides. Mm-hmm. You're going to find out that Pentheus, the king, is in Thebes. That's a real place. Thebes is an actual place in Greece. The whole thing's a fiction, but there's real verisimilitude. Now, I'm not necessarily saying they're the equivalent genre or they must be categorized identical. All I'm saying is go read Homer. Every single place that Homer on his journeys home lands is a real
actual geographic place that he's really landing in, even though the whole thing is an epic and it's fictional.
Right.
So places, people, and things don't get you closer to floating into clouds and ascensions and resurrected bodies and things like that. For me, they don't do that the same way other fiction doesn't do it, even if it has realisms. And it's a sophisticated approach, though, that he tries to take, in my opinion. It doesn't get me there. And the last comment I'll make is this. He mentioned Caleb Jackson, my friend. He, and I think rightly hit the nail on the head, and you mentioned this, he approaches this saying there's no ancient testimony that's going to convince skeptics like Derek. So what are we going to do? We're going to go and find modern examples of miracles like Zoltan and these other modern, contemporaneous, or within the last decade, century, 2 centuries, to convince you it's still happening today, testimony and experience wise, and cases give you. That's why he does it, and he thinks that's going to be more convincing. Sorry, I rambled.
It's funny you say that, because I'm going to have a private discussion with Caleb next week, because he's been emailing me and we've been having a back and forth. And he's a really nice dude. So I'm just going to talk to him privately next week. So that'll be cool. But yeah, man, I had a blast.
I did too. Look, last super chat, Amin Ra in the house. Thank you again for the super chat. Just jumping in. Love your lives. Keep going. Would love to see John Cohen. Oh, I've already emailed John on your show. So John is pretty gangster with these call-ins, and I'll be having him on. So stay tuned. But by the way, if you're just now tuning in, I can't not tell you, rewind this live when we end it. You're going to see some really wonky, crazy stuff you missed, Amin, and you're going to want to check it out. Not all of it, but the beginning, and then I think the first 2 callers were pretty.
Well, do you remember the first caller? Like the first caller who when I called him buddy, he got all pissed off at me.
I forgot.
Yeah,
Bro, I forgot.
That dude was insane, man.
Dude, you were like, "Hey, buddy, look," and he, "Oh, buddy," I don't know. Maybe
he was like, "Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?" I was like, "I'm just smiling, man. I'm not trying to be a jerk."
That was wild. I don't know what the heck to do with that.
But I had fun, man. I had fun.
I did too. Hey, man, really do appreciate your time. Clip whatever you want. Take whatever you want from these streams. Anything I do, you're welcome to use. And I hope everybody will, again, go subscribe. I'm going to go ahead again for the sake of the chat. It is in the description. So if you're watching this later and for whatever reason you can't access the live stream chat, the YouTube link to Steven's channel, it is called the Skeptical Agnostic, is in the description. Any final words from you, Steven, before we wrap things up?
Nothing other than thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. For those of you watching, hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to the next time we do this, man.
I do too. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Like the show, share the show, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Steven. Comment your thoughts after the live stream, and never forget, we are. Oh, interrupted. Yeah, first caller was next level. LOL. We are interrupted, but thank you. I'll take an interruption. Pat. Love you for that. Appreciate it. MythVision.
Son, do you want to know what the truth is? After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.